live Saturday edition of the show. Freshly in from New York City.
New York! Get a rope.
It's, well, not me, but you guys. I'm Ian, and tonight...
This is the captain.
And this is Mark Edge.
Welcome back, Mark, to the main studios here.
What year is this, man?
Right. I'm not sure. 2022, I think this is the first episode this year, and I think it's been more than a year since Ian and I have been on the air together in the same studio.
I would refer to this as Free Talk Live Classic plus me.
I think that's true because we were given permission by my federal masters to be able to speak again after, I don't know, 9 months or 8 months or something of that being unable to happen due to the bail conditions in this Crypto 6 case. For those just tuning in, our studios were raided in March of 2021. And I subsequently spent a couple months in jail. Our other co-host, Nobody, spent 6 months behind bars. I was able to speak with him before I was able to speak
illegally,
with you.
From what we can tell. Illegally, from what we can tell.
Yeah.
By the way, no one pays for that. There's nothing about that. Just time served.
Yeah. I was able to speak with him before I was able to speak with you, Mark, just
That's
based
correct.
on the way motions got filed and approvals got made. And
stupid stuff.
But you've been traveling around doing various different visits to Honduras and other places looking for the freest place on the planet.
I go to prepare a place for you.
Well, you can't do that because I'm under federal bail conditions, so I'll be staying right here.
I think he's referring to the audience as you in this particular case.
But anyway, but you have been out and about, and so while we've had interactions on the air, you've called into the show.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think you've been back in the studio with me to do a show, so welcome back.
Thank you.
And why were we in New York, Ian?
Well, you guys were at the Talkers Conference that is put on by Talkers Magazine.
It used to be called the New Media Conference. They were trying to sort of brand it as something more than talk radio. And there's certainly a lot of podcasters at this event.
Yeah, and then they just changed it. I think it's just called Talkers.
Just Talkers,
now.
yeah. And I think that, just Talkers 2022.
Well, they figured they did it for enough years calling it New Media. How long can you get away with calling a thing new?
Right, yeah.
For how many years?
New York, New Jersey, New
Isn't
Hampshire.
podcast new media, though?
Is it?
Streaming
It's almost
new?
20 years old now.
Okay.
Streaming's even older than podcasts. Podcasts started in 2005, so we're not quite to 20 years on that technology, but it's coming.
But really, the term podcast just refers to an audio file.
No, the term podcast actually refers to, if you want to get
I thought it was a person
technical,
who liked audio.
an RSS feed that has links to audio files.
Okay.
And that allows the person who has what's called a podcast catcher or a client to be able to subscribe to a show that they previously would have to go and fetch. They'd have to go every day to download the show of their favorite show. Yeah,
Yep.
MP3
Right.
or
So
whatever.
basically, if you recorded some sort of talking, I guess, is generally how podcasts are, onto an MP3, that in and of itself is the podcast, the content of the podcast. The method in which you receive that is what you're describing.
That is the podcast. Yeah.
Right. I had a long, pedantic conversation with a gentleman at the Talkers 2022 about this very thing, is that podcast didn't exist until RSS feeds existed.
That's correct.
Right.
Because I sort of I made the claim that Free Talk Live had podcasts before podcasts were a thing.
Right.
And to his mind, podcasts couldn't be a thing until podcasts were a thing because a thing can't exist until it's not. And he's correct.
The word has started to be used to simply describe a show. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
But that's not technically what the definition
Right.
is.
A podcast is the RSS feed that fetches the MP3.
In the same way that Bitcoin is not all cryptocurrencies.
Right, yeah.
Right.
But it is frequently used to describe...
Or a digital currency. The government's going to make its own Bitcoin. Right? They'll say something like that.
Digital currency, yeah.
Right. But the government already has a digital currency. What is the functional difference between the Federal Reserve's cryptocurrency, or China's, which I believe they've already rolled out?
They're working on, yeah.
What do they call that? Central bank
CBDC,
digital...
Central bank
yeah.
digital currency,
Right.
yeah.
The Chinese central bank digital renminbi, or whatever they're calling it. What is the difference between that and what the yuan has been up to this point already? Which
That's
is
an
digital.
excellent question.
I don't know.
I can clear that up for you.
Good.
Oh, can you? Okay, because I'm just going to take a stab and
Please, go
say
ahead.
that it can interact with cryptocurrency.
Nope, not
No?
necessarily.
Okay, because I was under the impression that it was more like a stable coin than what the currency currently is.
No, a stable coin would be the typical definition of a stable coin is something that is not issued by the government,
right,
but is backed by something issued by the government. So it is a cryptocurrency token that supposedly somewhere there's a dollar. So it might be if it's a dollar stable coin, then supposedly the company that issues it has a dollar to back that somewhere in a safe somewhere. Or if it's an ounce of gold, then they have an ounce of gold sitting in a safe.
But that dollar could be backed by a bond that is denominated in dollars. So, for instance, you could have $1 million backing Ian coin, but that $1 million is in a bond, which presumably is liquid enough that you can within a couple of days.
There's a lot of real questionable things out there with the world of stablecoins. But to get back to the original question about what is a central bank digital currency and how is it different from, let's say, the digital money in your credit card or the digital dollars in your bank account, right? Because those are
digital.
Those are digital. Most of the money out there, quote unquote, in the United States isn't physical paper.
Right.
It's digital. So what's the difference?
At this point, we don't even know what any of that stuff. To stop you before you to go on here is they stopped reporting M3, as I recall it. This is Money 3. M3 back in 2004. They stopped reporting M1 and M2 probably 3 years ago during the Trump administration. So at this point, there is also an M0, which is the actual denomination of bills and coins, which is interesting because the Federal Reserve issues bills, the Mint issues coins.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you have government money. On the other hand, you have
private bankers,
bank money, and they should cancel each other out because the government borrows money from the bank, so the coin should cancel the right? I mean, like, nobody knows how much money there is, the idea. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just want to point out real quick that to our listeners that might find all this confusing, it's all based around the fact that there is not enough physical dollars to equate the number of dollars that are passed around between individuals, banks, and financial institutions.
And what would be the point of it being a physical dollar, since a physical dollar is just paper anyway? It's not backed by anything. You know, it used to be that a silver certificate said redeemable for 1 ounce of silver, and you could go get yourself a nice, shiny Eisenhower, silver dollar.
Right. That's of course how how currency became. Was it used to be backed by something?
Yes,
they got rid of that. So to answer the question of what's the difference between this proposed central bank digital currency that they're working on in China, I believe the Bahamas is working on one. There's a few different countries around the world that are close to releasing these things. The U.S. government has not yet said for sure they're going to move forward with it, or the Federal Reserve. But the basic difference would be the central bank digital currency cuts out the private banks, with the exception of the Federal Reserve. So the Banks of America, the J.P. Morgan, all these other bankers would be completely cut out of the equation from the central bank digital currency, which is why the big bankers are actually against the central bank digital currency. So it would allow individuals, at least as proposed, and there's different potential models for it, it would allow the Federal Reserve essentially to open up accounts for everybody with a Social Security number. And then it would allow total monitoring, total control, because they have a lot of ability to monitor bank accounts, right?
Sure.
But they usually have to go to the bank and ask them to pull a record.
They're franchises as opposed to, the direct home stores.
Right. So this would be total direct monitoring of every American's monetary purchases and, inflows, outflows, and all that. Yeah. It also would allow them to easily issue welfare payments without having to go through a EBT card or whatever bank account, issuing a check, that kind of thing. Right. So, like, imagine the $1,200 checks that people got at the very beginning of COVID. So instead of having to send out a bunch of checks, they would just...
That sounds superior.
Poof. It is in your central bank digital currency wallet.
When I think about, the 2008 bank crisis and too big to fail, I would certainly have rather seen all the money that was created at that time and the time, all the money in the last 3 years go to American people rather than to big international banks.
Well, don't worry. The big international banks are probably not going to go anywhere because they have a lot of influence.
Parasites are resilient.
Yeah. And so if we do see a CBDC in the United States, it will likely be just part of a new 3-tier system, basically. They're going to keep cash around for a while and keep the bankers involved. More coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Live Saturday show. That's 603-283-6160. So happy that we have some more Truth Smacks here in the studio, thanks to Suzanne, the former English teacher and longtime truth seeker, who recently started her own trail mix brand. She's making it, bagging it, and sealing it herself in a commercial kitchen down in Naples, Florida. And I understand she's coming up to the Porcupine Freedom Festival
to sell some Truth Smacks.
And I suspect that she will, because they're excellent trail mix, and they're made with all raw, unadulterated ingredients. You don't get any artificial crap here with Truth Smacks. It's food as nature intended, and I think that alone would go over really well at the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Yeah. Plus, every bag of Truth Smacks is basically an outreach project. It's an outreach tool because it's got, 6 to a dozen, depending on the size of the bag, quotes on the back, very freedom-oriented, infamous or famous quotes that might just motivate some people who are not already on board with the ideas of freedom to check it out.
Great thing to give your hiking friends. But frankly, I can't say I've taken the Truth Smacks on a hike.
I'm eating it around the house.
I'm just eating it around the house, and they're delicious.
Yeah.
That spearmint, the peppermint variety that they have, I think is really special. I really enjoy it.
It's controversial.
Yep,
I'll say
some
that.
hosts like it, some hosts don't.
Yep, but everybody loves the original.
It is
hands down.
Agreed. But I kind of feel like the thing that separates the original from other snacks is that it's all natural.
Yep.
And it's particularly tasty. It's got a lot of chocolate in it, I think.
I love it. Yeah.
The peppermint, though, I've never had anything like it in my life.
I'm pretty sure it's the same mix, just with peppermint oil on it.
But I've never had anything like it in my life.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Truthsmacks.com/shop. It is a great way to smack your friends and family with the truth in a loving way. It's truthsmacks.com/shop. They are spreading truth one delicious morsel at a time. You don't need to wait till PorcFest. You can get them right now at truthsmacks.com/shop. There's 2 sizes, by the way, and the 2 different flavors. So check that out. As we go, we've got your calls, of course. If you want to make them, you can bring up anything at 603-283-6160. I was going to talk about the protests that are going on all across the United States, apparently, today, but we ended up getting sidetracked into discussing the central bank digital currency and what it is that will separate the digital currency, the central bank digital currency, from the existing forms of digital dollars today. And the short answer to that is total control.
Right, and that's the thing that we hadn't gotten to yet was the potential for evil in this.
That is the intention.
I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. It was maybe 20 years ago or so, where the powers that be, right, the government, if you will, cut off a person's everything, their bank accounts, their ID, all that kind of stuff. I think it was a female lead in that movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, but that's the type of horrible things that are possible with a central bank digital currency. Government would have total control over your financial life by forcing everyone to transact in this particular form of the dollar instead of the current form, or even cryptocurrency for that matter, which I don't know if they can stop. The only question that I have still is I'm not sure how they can eliminate cash.
They will probably not. And the strongest argument that was brought up about this is that you still need to have the politicians are still going to want to take payments.
Right. That's what I was.
Did that one?
That's what I still haven't got a real answer to that.
I don't think there's a proposal yet to get rid of cash. I think eventually they want to try to figure out how to do that. But as long as politicians are on the take, they're going to want a briefcase full of cash. They're not going to want anything that's traceable.
Right.
The politicians have been on the take through banks for some time. I agree with you that might be one of the reasons that you might retain it. But I'm skeptical. They're going to find, graft and corruption finds its way around.
True.
And politicians are experts at this. I think that, central banks have wanted this kind of control long enough that it's coming. By the way, this is just for those that don't know, this is the definition of the number of the beast. So in Revelations, they talk about a number that's going to be on your hand or your forehead that's going to allow you to transact and allow you to do business. And without it, you won't be. So it's not like this idea is new.
No.
This is it. This is effectively what you're being warned about 2,000 years ago. And will it be used? Will the number of the beast be used for good, ladies and gentlemen? That's what I want to know.
I don't think so.
It also strikes a chord, a harmony, if you will, with all of the points of Brave New World, because it will literally create an underground class of human beings. There will be people who will live outside of this central bank digital currency system, and they will be outside of everything that you consider normal today: healthcare, finance, property ownership.
They're already
all of that
pushing
kind
people
of
out of
stuff.
healthcare with all the mask nonsense.
Right, and also mandatory, you must have insurance and all that kind of stuff. So
But they already push people out of the banking system currently.
Sure.
I mean, those people live marginal lives, and then they have to try to solve the problem that they created with their banking system. I mean, but, you bounce one check at 18 years old, and you're going to have a lot of problems for the next 2 years trying to figure out how to get your banking situation sorted out these days. Now, I bounced a lot of checks in my life just because I'm a bad money manager. I just bounce checks. You don't. I know you don't.
I bet you most 18-year-olds have never even written a check.
that's probably accurate. In fact, I was done writing checks when I moved to New Hampshire. I had to get a checkbook so I could pay my water and sewer bill when I bought my house, because they didn't accept
take credit cards.
They only accept MasterCard. They won't take MasterCard and American Express, but they won't take you got
to pay the
Visa.
extra fee too if you want to use a card with the government.
But also they had the mask mandates and the lockdown and everything, and I didn't want to go deal with government bureaucrats in person and be forced to have to do anything. So instead of showing up in person to pay it, I just got some checks. And now once every quarter, I write a frickin' check.
How do people get overdrawn on their accounts now? I don't know this. I don't know the answer to this.
I think that some banks, they issue debit cards, right?
Yeah, sure.
And some banks will cover up to $100 negative, basically, or something like that. Each bank has its own policies on that. Like, you're good for $100, but they still hit you with a fee.
Okay.
Right. So that's the
whole point, right?
Yeah. So any kind of overdrawing or any kind of debiting. Right, so any automatic debit for your power bill or something like that, again, that would bring you into the negative if you aren't good with money and you don't have the money in the account.
Yeah.
Did we clarify the CBDC is good enough? Are we good on that?
I think so.
I think
Any
so.
questions about it? All right. It's going to be something that is going to keep coming up, by the way, because they're in the
central
process
bank
of talking
digital
about
currency.
It. Yeah, the central bank digital currencies. They are in the process of planning this thing. They released earlier this year a lengthy report. They already had MIT come up with the software that, the potential, here's the demo, here's how it could work, that kind of thing. So basically, they're just arguing with the big banks over what sort of form this should take if it is approved.
Yep, and they're already doing this basically in China. They have a app which you do all your payments on, so it's effectively a banking app. That you do all your chatting on. It's effectively Twitter and Facebook. And you get a social credit score. You get everything through this app, WeChat. And
that's right. It's
terrifying that might be coming to America. But of course, authoritarian organizations like authoritarian ideas.
There's more coming up here. Coming up, the big protest. Thousands of people in the streets in D.C. and across the United States, and apparently as many as 400 cities today, in favor of gun control. We'll talk about it on the way. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with more bad news for the US on inflation, up to another 40-year high, with the May number hitting 8.6%. President Biden addressed the news during a visit to Los Angeles.
Today's inflation report confirmed what Americans already know. Putin's price hike is hitting America hard. Gas prices at the pump, energy and food prices account for half of the monthly price increases since May. We needed to come down much more quickly.
But while the president blames Vladimir Putin for the inflationary spiral, his critics contend his own public spending is part of the problem. Friday brought a court ruling in London that means the British government is currently on track to deport a group of asylum seekers to Rwanda in the coming week. It's part of a controversial policy that will require asylum seekers to wait in the far-off African nation for their claims to move to the UK to be processed. Graham McGregor is a migrant rights activist who opposes the plan.
The UN High Commission for Refugees intervened in the case and have made very clear that the Rwandan asylum processing system is not fit for purpose in this case.
Boris Johnson ended the week still in power in the UK. That was in question at the start of the week.
The vote in favour of having confidence in Boris Johnson as leader was 211 votes, and the vote against was 148 votes.
But that means 41% of his fellow Conservative lawmakers wanted him gone. He called the vote decisive and insisted he'll refocus his government on the country's cost of living crisis. The House of Representatives passed a package of gun control measures that would raise the lawful age at which Americans can buy assault rifles from 18 to 21. But there's no sign the Senate agrees, and negotiations at a compromise acceptable to both sides are continuing. Thursday night witnessed a made-for-TV hearing in the US. The House of Representatives Select Committee investigating last year's January insurrection on Capitol Hill accused former President Donald Trump of launching an attempted coup.
Donald Trump, the President of the United States, spurred a mob of domestic enemies of the Constitution to march down the Capitol and subvert American democracy.
That's Congressman Benny Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi, with more. FSN's Washington correspondent Benji Hire.
The first in a series of hearings featured previously unseen material, including footage from filmmakers embedded within far-right protesters on the day and testimony from police officers who sustained serious head injuries resisting the mob.
The Russians made more advances in eastern Ukraine over the course of the week. President Zelensky vowed to rebuild his country and said Kiev will not accept stalemate as an outcome. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
The Lord Reverend Dr. Captain Kickass is also here.
And Mark.
Also, Free Talk Live brought to you by Bitcoin.com. We were just talking about central bank digital currencies, and of course that is the government's so-called answer to the new digital world currency. They're going to try to pretend like it is, even though Bitcoin, of course, is decentralized.
Oh, you like digital money? We've got digital money for you.
Yeah.
We've had digital money for years.
There's going to be some key differences between things like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and the government monies. And you can go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and start learning about what are those differences. Why is the technology behind Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, why is it so special? What makes it worth learning about? They'll give you some of that those details over there at Bitcoin.com. Click Get Started at the top of the page and begin your odyssey into the world of cryptocurrency. Plus, you can get the latest news headlines any old time you want to over at news.bitcoin.com. So, the big news, I think, right now, as far as what's happening today in D.C. and in cities all across the United States, according to the mainstream media reports, and there's a photograph here with people as far as the eye can see in this photo at the National Mall in Washington, D.C., in front of the Washington Monument. Thousands.
Are they wearing hats? I'm told to look for the hats. They might mean something.
Actually, no. Okay. No, they've got shirts on, though, and lots of signs. The T-shirts say, March for Our Lives. And this group apparently was formed in Parkland after the Parkland shooting in, I think it was 2017. That's in Florida. Mm-hmm. So thousands of people rallied today in a renewed push for gun control measures after a recent mass shootings, which we've talked about here. Of course, Uvalde, Texas at the elementary school, and then Buffalo at the grocery store.
Would any of the measures that are on the table for being approved have done anything to prevent the shootings as they occurred.
Well, no, of course not, because you can't stop a psychopath from doing horrifying things.
It's already illegal to, grab
Shoot
a
people
gun,
with a gun,
and go shoot people wherever they may be. The overlooked thing by the majority of the public, of course, is that the government is creating sitting ducks by creating gun-free zones. And so anytime you have a whole bunch of sitting ducks, that's going to be very appealing to evil people.
But I'll play devil's advocate for your question, Mark, and I'll say, well, in this case, the man that did the shooting in Uvalde was 18 years old, and one of the proposals on the table that has already passed the U.S. House, now being debated in the Senate or whatever, is to raise the age of purchase of rifles from 18 to 21.
Did the man who had the rifle in Uvalde, Texas, purchase it?
I think he did.
Okay.
I believe he had 2 rifles in that case.
Okay.
In fact, that was what was, for some people, unbelievable. They were shocked that an 18-year-old could have saved enough money to buy 2 guns. It's like, that's not that much. I mean, it's a few $1,000s, right? But if you've got
even. It depends on the type of rifle. I mean,
I think it was the M14 styles, but I could be wrong.
They have Bushmaster. I mean,
does this proposal to raise the age of firearms apply to both police and military?
No, of course not.
Well, then it seems inconsistent to me.
Well, they will make an exception, obviously, for government agents. I mean, they want their
shooting
guys
people
to have
in
guns.
the government's name. Yes. And so, indeed they will. Also, one of the things that concerns me is that why would we want homogeny in governance, right? Like, wouldn't you want a bunch of different experiments to see what works best?
Yes.
That's what I would want. And therefore, in my opinion, if you think that your life will be better in a place where they don't have guns or the guns are illegal and that sort of thing, go there.
Sure.
Now, I'm not telling you to leave America. I'm not trying to give that flippant response. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to say is the most empowering thing that I can come up with is you should have the government that you want. And if you want a government that has already taken people's guns away, by God, it's out there. Almost all of them.
Move to San Francisco.
Well,
Move to Chicago.
Even inside the United States, you can do it, but they still have shootings inside the U.S. It's really difficult to manage 600 million guns in the hands of 300 million people.
And
that.
If I don't want government, can I have that as well? Or should I? According to your statement,
you can get close in so much as you could pick the top 5 freedoms that you want, and find a place that had those top 5 freedoms.
Sure.
But you probably, if you're like, I'm a non-stamp collector, like I must have no government in order to. Yeah, actually, you can. You can have no government by buying a sailboat and going out 14 miles.
I'm just saying, in you're saying that people should get the government that they want. If a guy wants none, he should get it, right?
You should, in my opinion.
Yes. I agree with your statement about there should be a whole bunch of experiments, if you will, or a whole bunch of and decentralize these things, right? Mm-hmm. Down to the individual level, right? To where, hey, you know what? If you don't want to have any guns, Mark, that's cool. I respect that. But you must also respect that I'm going to have a gun.
That's true in America, but I mean, you can go to Great Britain, and they've taken care of almost all of the gun crime in Great Britain. Now people stab each other. They're trying to get rid of the pointy pieces of metal.
If you exclude government gun crime.
I doubt they're probably not killing that many people in.
They certainly ally with all of the with the U.S. for example,
but not in Great Britain.
And they certainly do own guns and bombs and tanks and planes and all of the implements of destruction that any other government owns.
Well, I have implements of destruction at my house too. I don't use them on people, so it's not bad to have them.
You got F-15s.
I do not have an F-15.
You got, missiles.
I don't know if the British government would be caught dead with an F-15. I'd have to check on that. They probably have their own little, British-made.
I'm just saying, don't forget that governments are the largest killers and the most heavily armed entities on the planet.
Sure. And I agree. But I just think that if you're going to travel all the way to Washington to go on a march, keep traveling. Because, you can leave and go to some place where you can get what you want.
Or just stay in D.C. I'm pretty sure the guns are highly restricted there.
Yeah. But, I mean, to me, it seems really disempowered to go and beg politicians to do what you want over and over and over and over again when you can go someplace and get closer to what you want.
Yeah.
And
more
that's
people
what my
should
opinion.
do that. More people should take that advice from Mark and just split up. In fact, there's been a lot of talk about national divorce recently, and I think we're going to hear even more of it, especially if people like this actually start to gain more traction. We start to see even more restrictions coming from the federal government. You may start to see more people taking the idea of peaceful secession seriously. And that is really the best solution here. Not only should you move, as Mark is saying, migrate for more or less freedom, depending on what you're looking for. There are places that are more apt to what you're searching for. But then you should also ask those places, those politicians in those places or whatever, to say goodbye to the federal government and start talking about secession as something that is a realistic possibility. I know, Mark, you don't believe that it is. But
I don't think it's I think it's more and less realistic for different geopolitical designations. I think once you're talking about the United States, it starts getting less likely. But if you were talking about Palau, for instance, they did.
Where's
Philippines? Oh, you don't know about this?
No,
you're a secession expert, and you don't know
I'm not an
that
expert.
places have left the United States.
Never said
and
I was
been
an expert.
devastated financially.
Palau's a U.S. territory?
It was at one point part of the Trust territory from World War II. So if you're talking about, say, the Northern Mariana Islands, or you're talking about U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, these places could successfully pull off a secession. It would be devastating financially for them to do so. But they could, because they don't generate the kind of money that they take in federal aid.
So they're welfare states.
Sure.
Yeah.
So are many of the states in the United States.
Not New Hampshire. The number here is 603-283-6160. I believe New Hampshire is what's called a donor state, meaning that more tax money comes out of the people of New Hampshire than comes back to the government.
The United States isn't going to let states secede that goes to another state like Maine.
There's more on the way here. You can share your thoughts on Free Talk Live.
Fact. The new NSA data center in Utah requires 1.7 million gallons of water every single day to operate. Billions of Fourth Amendment violations need massive computers and the water to cool them. That water is being supplied by the state of Utah. Fact. There's absolutely nothing in the Constitution which requires your state to help the feds violate your rights. Our message to Utah: turn it off. No water equals no NSA data center. Visit offnow.org.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. The phones are open here. And as always, you can join us. Bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Tonight, you've got Ian,
the captain,
and Mark.
Don't forget you can join us online over at freetalklive.com. And thank you to AC, who is a Free Talk Live supporter via our AMPS Patreon. You can join it over at amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. AC's doing silver level, which means that he is sending over $5 a month to support what we do here, to advertise, market, promote, and support. That's what AMPS stands for. You can join it with your debit card, your credit card, or your PayPal account over at amps.freetalklive.com. Thanks, AC.
Yeah, for those that aren't used to hearing my voice, I am one of the founding members here at Free Talk Live. Basically two, right? Ian, how do you count that? Yeah.
Sounds fine.
Basically, two founding hosts of Free Talk Live. And yesterday, the captain and I were down in Long Island, near New York City, and I received the most prestigious award in radio, the Freedom of Speech Award, and I just wanted to let everyone know.
You deserved it.
You did receive it. However,
you even gave a speech, I heard.
I did give a speech that you wrote.
And there's video of it, too, which is coming soon.
Because it has your name on it, Ian. I'm so proud of you for receiving this award. I really am. So this is the most prestigious award in radio. It's called the Freedom of Speech Award. And in my opinion, for as long as they've had this thing, I remember whispering
30-something years.
Yeah. I remember whispering to you that they were giving this thing out. And I think they were giving it to Robin Quivers, who was receiving it for Howard Stern the first time. And I said, that should be for you. And finally, you have received the Freedom of Speech Award, and I think that it is. I think it's just great.
And everybody to a person, mind you, I've never been to one of these. I know you guys go every year, or whatever. Yeah. I've never been to one of these. It said Free Talk Live on my name tag, so people kind of got the idea that I was associated with y'all. And everybody was like, "I wish Ian could be here. Say hi to Ian." You know, all this kind of stuff. Sweet. Like all of the sentiment was there from almost everybody to a person.
And I mean, just how many people remarked, "Man, this award was made for Ian." And that he got it.
And almost everybody, too, that Mark introduced me to, or anybody who is aware of your situation, they think it's BS.
Yep.
So, there were people who are like, I can't believe he can't be here because of this BS.
Right. That's basically Ian's speech is so dangerous that the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the U.S. Attorneys of New Hampshire, and apparently one federal judge, am I wrong on that one or not, Ian?
What do you mean?
Is they couldn't handle the idea of you going. These people couldn't handle it.
The judge,
not the judge,
was never asked.
Okay, so forgive me.
Yes.
The FBI and the U.S. Attorney just can't put up with the idea of you going and receiving the Freedom of Speech Award.
No, there are violent criminals that actually have lesser bail restrictions.
Oh, yeah.
By far.
Yeah. Because the violent criminals aren't a threat to the state and its banker masters.
That's the truth. But you went, and thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the speech went over with the crowd, because
they were really excited about it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
I was kind of taking them to task with the content.
Your speech was intended to scold some.
Yeah.
And I think it did scold some.
Yeah.
But it got applause at the end of it. And it was short, which is
great.
what everybody wants from
That's
speeches.
what I wanted. I want to make whenever I get the chance to speak at Talkers, which has only been on a rare occasion over the years. I always like to keep it shorter than whatever the allotted time is, and I think I cut this one to 3-ish minutes basically. So
right, and then I had about probably a minute on top of that.
Yeah, the thing you don't want to do at these conferences is be the drunk guy who gets up in front of the crowd and just rambles on and on. It hasn't happened in a few years.
No.
But Al Franken, I think, was the most notorious for just going on and not even realizing that everyone's checking their watch and like, all right, man, you done yet?
Yeah, there was one of those.
You can talk.
He wasn't drunk, but there was one of those.
This year?
Let me tell you about me.
Just drunk on himself is what you're saying.
Let me tell you about me.
There was a very, very frightening thing that I heard at the Talkers Convention.
Is this the Bill O'Reilly thing?
Yeah, he. Speaking of gun control and the protests and that kind of thing.
We'll do it live.
Yeah, that guy. That's the guy. So he was a guest, and he got on stage, and he exclaimed that the solution to the gun violence problem in the United States of America is to federalize all gun crime.
Oh, boy.
So that, guy walks into wherever with a gun and shoots some people. It's automatically a federal crime, right? Instead of being treated on a state-by-state cases. And I was just like...
Are the state police doing such a bad job conducting investigations into gun crime that somehow we need to bring in the Fibbies?
I don't think so.
Would we just hire all of the state cops to the federal level? Because almost every crime at this point is almost all violent crimes are gun crimes.
His argument was supported by, I know more than you do because I'm educated, and like he flaunted some sort of degree that he has or whatever, and that kind of a thing. So I know more than you, so I say this is the solution.
Well, the worst statists tend to be the educated ones.
I like kind of got sick to my stomach a little bit watching and listening to that. I was just like, ugh.
I was out talking to some friends. It was nicer.
So thanks for going to that, guys. Again, that was the Talkers Conference, and hopefully I'll get to go next year. That'd be nice.
That'd be great.
603-283-6160. The written speech is over at freetalklive.com. You can read that there, and then once we have the video, I'll post that there for those.
You have the video. You just have to get it.
It needs some
once it's
trimming.
ready.
The file itself is only like 8 minutes, so I imagine it'll be an easy watch.
All right, so 603-283-6160. David is on the line in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, David.
Oh, Freedom of Speech Award. That might explain why I didn't hold 90 minutes to have my call die on hold today. Yay!
Okay, are you calling for some reason? Go ahead.
David needs the Freedom of Speech Award.
Listen to Mr. Freedom of Speech. Yes, I am calling for a reason.
Right,
first of all, I want to expose. Hello.
You're right here.
Jesus, that would be funny.
Expose away.
Hello.
You're here.
Jesus.
Hello.
All right, one more, and then you're going to be gone.
You keep talking over me, Mr. Freedom of Speech. So I want to expose government, and before I do that, let me answer your question. I don't agree with Bill O'Reilly, but Bill O'Reilly's reason for having the feds enforce gun crimes is because they have mandatory minimums for gun crimes. That's why, as compared to like the state of New Mexico, where you can do gun crimes and literally get released on your own recognizance same day. So that's why. Thank you. By the way, the DA that does that releases gun crime people same day on their own recognizance is Raul Torres, the guy that wanted to put me in prison for calling radio stations in the state of New Mexico, like KKOB and KUNM. Oh, KUNM, a public university radio station. I guess they'll never be getting a Freedom of Speech award. I doubt any radio station in the state of New Mexico will get a Freedom of Speech award. So back to exposing government, like judges. Judges are government, right? So we got a judge named Tommy Jewell. Tommy Jewell, I believe you looked him up a while ago when I mentioned him, Ian. A 9th degree black belt, a black guy with a black belt, and probably some Argyle socks. Anyway, Tommy Jewell was the presiding judge of the Children's Court in the 2nd Judicial District, and so was M. Monica Zamora, and so was John J. Romero Jr. See any incest or nepotism there? And Captain can supply the word of the two words combined. I forgot the name of that. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Nepocestuous.
Just for listeners that don't know, you're referring to judges that have basically trafficked your children. They took your kids from you.
They didn't basically traffic my children. Let me go on the record with this. Judge Angela Jewell and M. Monica Zamora and John J. Romero Jr. absolutely, beyond the shadow of a doubt, trafficked my children because I proved it in their own state of New Mexico Court of Appeals with a unanimous 3-judge decision, Wexler, Bustamante, and Kennedy. Hi, Rod.
And then they gave you your kids back and $200,000 for all the time, right?
No, they gave me nothing. I've never seen them again, even though Judge Roderick Kennedy wrote in his own hand, we're reversing M. Monica Zamora because she broke the law, and we're remanding this back to Judge John J. Romero.
And how many years ago was that remand?
That was like, I don't know, 12. Who's counting? 12 years? 11 years.
It's rough, man. Thank you for the call tonight.
That Judge Jewell sounds like a real gem.
I'm sure he's not the only one that they're doing this to.
I want to know what David does, because I've been around musicians, singers specifically in this case. I want to know what David does to condition his voice. Because,
to warm up?
Yeah, because I just picture him with his cell phone in hand about 3 feet away from his face. Okay, here's what I'm talking about today. Right? Just yelling at the phone. I want to know what his warm-up routine is. It lemon? Is it tea? Honey? What is it?
The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever you want. But yeah, the family courts suck, and a lot of people have been just had their freedoms and their families destroyed by that system. There's more coming up here. You can join us. Hour 2's on the way. It's Free Talk Live.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with more bad news for the US on inflation, up to another 40-year high, with the May number hitting 8.6%. President Biden addressed the news during a visit to Los Angeles.
Today's inflation report confirmed what Americans already know. Putin's price hike is hitting America hard. Gas prices at the pump, energy and food prices account for half of the monthly price increases since May. We needed to come down much more quickly.
But while the president blames Vladimir Putin for the inflationary spiral, his critics contend his own public spending is part of the problem. Friday brought a court ruling in London that means the British government is currently on track to deport a group of asylum seekers to Rwanda in the coming week. It's part of a controversial policy that will require asylum seekers to wait in the far-off African nation for their claims to move to the UK to be processed. Graham McGregor is a migrant rights activist who opposes the plan.
The UN High Commission for Refugees intervened in the case and have made very clear that the Rwandan asylum processing system is not fit for purpose in this case.
Boris Johnson ended the week still in power in the UK. That was in question at the start of the week.
The vote in favour of having confidence in Boris Johnson as leader was 211 votes, and the vote against was 148 votes.
But that means 41% of his fellow Conservative lawmakers wanted him gone. He called the vote decisive and insisted he'll refocus his government on the country's cost of living crisis. The House of Representatives passed a package of gun control measures that would raise the lawful age at which Americans can buy assault rifles from 18 to 21. But there's no sign the Senate agrees, and negotiations at a compromise acceptable to both sides are continuing. Thursday night witnessed a made-for-TV hearing in the US. The House of Representatives Select Committee investigating last year's January insurrection on Capitol Hill accused former President Donald Trump of launching an attempted coup.
Donald Trump, the President of the United States, spurred a mob of domestic enemies of the Constitution to march down the Capitol and subvert American democracy.
That's Congressman Benny Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi, with more. FSN's Washington correspondent Benji Hire.
The first in a series of hearings featured previously unseen material, including footage from filmmakers embedded within far-right protesters on the day and testimony from police officers who sustained serious head injuries resisting the mob.
The Russians made more advances in eastern Ukraine over the course of the week. President Zelensky vowed to rebuild his country and said Kiev will not accept stalemate as an outcome. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. After those inflation numbers, investors in the US this week will focus their attention on an upcoming Federal Reserve meeting. The Fed is expected to announce another interest rate rise when the meeting wraps up on Wednesday. With the preview from FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo.
Traders expect the Fed to raise interest rates by 50 basis points when they convene this week. But with price pressures continuing to grow, investors will be looking to see whether the US Central Bank will seek to take more aggressive action. Fed Chair Jerome Powell is slated to deliver remarks at the conclusion of the two-day meeting on Wednesday. William Denslow, New York.
Australia's new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has held his first face-to-face meeting with New Zealand's leader Jacinda Ardern. They discussed a range of issues overshadowed by China's expansion in the region. Sean Bindley covered that story for us from Brisbane.
Jacinda Ardern says the change of government in Australia offers the chance to reset the relationship. The pair discussed a number of issues, including climate change policy and a push to ease Australia's deportation rules.
The discussions really represented the opportunity for a reset. And I felt that in the dialogue that we had today.
Ms Ardern is the first foreign leader to visit Australia since Mr Albanese became Prime Minister last month.
The Prime Minister and I are determined to take trans-Tasman relations to a new level. What that means is new jobs, new growth, new opportunities to cooperate.
In Brisbane, I'm Sean Bindley.
In the week ahead, the average price of a gallon of petrol in America may top $5. There'll be a vote on Capitol Hill to expand security for Supreme Court justices ahead of their controversial anticipated abortion ruling. And a top British official will be in Washington trying to defuse tensions over the Brexit-related Northern Ireland Protocol. Those stories here and on Twitter at Feature Story. And that is the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
According to locals waiting for a 66 bus in downtown Chicago last night, a young couple was making out in the passenger shelter like they were in Paris or something. Onlookers spoke to reporters about the pair, who carried on their passionate embrace for over 20 minutes, as if they were in some sort of goddamn candlelit bistro tucked away in Montmartre.
It's been almost a half an hour and they're still going at it. It's like they think they're sitting on a sun-dappled picnic blanket in the Tuileries Gardens. I mean, where the hell are we? The Champs-Élysées?
The pair's marathon makeout session, which took place in downtown Chicago and not, as frustrated onlookers emphasized, on a cobblestone street in the city of lights, featured intense gazing, deep tongue kissing, and other gestures of affection typically reserved for a couple strolling down the banks of the Seine River.
You know, for a second there, I honestly thought we had all been transported to Parc Monceau, drinking flutes of champagne on a wonderful summer afternoon while being serenaded by a Parisian accordion player. But no, we're at a bus stop in Chicago.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, kicking off the second hour of the live Saturday show. The phones are open if you want to join us at 603-283-6160. In the news today, thousands of people in Washington, D.C. and in cities across the country rallying against guns, for gun control. It's called not the Million Mom March. March for Our Lives is what this one's called. We can get into more about that. Your calls and thoughts, of course, are welcome with you tonight. It's Ian,
the Reverend Captain Kickass,
and Mark.
We're going to go right into your calls and thoughts. First up, we got Mud on the line in Washington State in the Spokane area. Go ahead, Mud.
Hello, first-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome, sir.
Impressive.
Thank you. Want to give a shout-out to last caller, Dave. That was a lot of coffee he's probably had today. I'm going to jump on that wagon. Hey, so I wanted to talk about, it seems to me like a lot of liberal people, they don't know the difference between firearms. They don't know the difference between calibers. They don't know the difference between a shotgun and an AR-15, which is essentially a 22 with just a little bit more power. But they say that that's something that the military carries. I wonder if they just look at a gun and they think that that's something that the military carries because the looks.
Yeah.
Now they've got a bill that just passed, and I wonder if they're checking out any of the data from when Bill Clinton was in office and he passed all this stuff, magazines and stuff like that. Are they looking back at the data from when he had done that?
I'm going to guess no, they're not looking at any of that because all they want is for you not to have guns. Right?
Absolutely.
They themselves don't want to have guns either.
Well, they also don't know what it takes to buy one, right? Like they believe that you can go to Walmart and buy a fully automatic, AK-47 or whatever it is,
and walk out same day.
Day and mow down the parking lot. And then they try to do such a thing.
Semi-automatic. They think that if you hold down to the trigger, that they don't know the difference between fully automatic and semi-automatic either.
There's a variety of misconceptions out there, no doubt, and I think that they don't want to know what the facts are.
They're terrified. They're terrified of guns. They just see them as evil tools, except if they're in the hands of the government. Then it's totally fine.
Well, in many cases, they don't like the government until they want the government to do a thing. You can't do gun control without guns. You must have people with guns in order to do gun control.
Right, so they don't really want gun control. They just want to point the guns of government at people who disagree with them.
Well, the raising of the age, that doesn't bother me. I'm in my 40s, so, and, I have my license. I have to wait a little bit longer now. It went from 5 days to 7 to 14 the last time I bought another toy.
Why doesn't that bother you? Is it just because you're like, oh, well, I'm too old, so I don't care what happens to young people?
Well, it just doesn't. I do. I guess I haven't thought about it too much. Personally, it doesn't affect me.
Well, yeah, it does, because everybody out there that wants to have a gun, that is willing to be a responsible gun owner, should be able to have one, and then therefore those people provide for a safer society. If they are responsible people, we want them to be armed, don't we?
And don't forget the 20,000 gun laws that exist justify the 20,001st gun law. Every time, if these people are legitimate in a country where it says shall not be infringed regarding gun laws, if they can have 20,000 gun laws, then they can have 20,001 or 2.
Yeah, Mud, you got to be real careful with saying things like, "Oh, well, it doesn't affect me," because people who have their rights trampled.
Let me rephrase it then, because they can enlist 18-year-olds into the military.
They can,
and there are those responsible ones. So there's a big gray area there. I think that the difference between Generation X and Generation Z, we wrote the book, man. There's nothing that kids could do and get away with stuff, We know it better. But, yeah, so I get your point on that. But,
yeah, you have to stand up for the rights of everybody. If you believe in the right to bear arms, then that right applies across human beings, whatever their age is. Honestly, I don't think you should have a minimum age at all, as long as the parents are willing. They think if parents think that their kids are responsible enough, they've been to the gun range, they've trained them or whatever, they think they're responsible enough to have a gun, and they gift them a gun, then they should be able to carry that thing around. And I believe that's legal. They can. I believe that is legal in New Hampshire. I don't know about, Mark, if that's the case in Washington State or wherever else.
Yeah, this is not legal advice. Your particular jurisdiction may have lost its mind many decades ago.
Yeah. So, Mud, anything else you want to share?
Well, I just, going back, one last thing, I really wish that those people that don't know much about guns that are trying to pass laws would do the research and learn the difference between what they are and what they do, because there's a lot of misconceptions. That bothers the hell out of me.
Thank you, Mud, for the call tonight. I do appreciate hearing from you.
I want to point out that as a study done from 2017-2018 found that there was 857 million guns in the United States. And so if gun owners were lawful, otherwise peaceful people, if they were the problem, you'd know about it.
Right, and
that's
Mark,
more guns than 3 guns for every working age adult.
Right, but remember, and you'd mentioned earlier, Mark, 600 million guns, 300-something million people. It's like, no, only so many people actually own guns. I pulled up some statistics, and in just a phone poll, like a scientific survey, only about 1 in 3 admitted to owning guns. So we figure it's less than half.
That each person who has a gun has probably 9.
I apologize. They released a report estimating the number of civilian firearms in the world. The study found that there were more than 1 billion firearms in the world, 857 million of which were in civilian hands, but they estimated that 393 million guns were owned by United States citizens.
Right, and I have heard numbers across the board. You see, this is the difficulty.
It's hard to know.
Well, that's the thing, is they really don't know. Right. And when you start figuring in the fact that people can make ARs in their garages with ghost gunners and things like this.
I saw a thing the other day that somebody printed a rocket launcher.
What?
That's right. Somebody printed a rocket launcher,
but not the rocket.
And fired it somehow. Right. I don't know if they printed the rocket itself or if they just got an existing piece of ammunition.
Did they have video of this?
I don't know.
That's amazing.
3D
printing technology is changing the game when it comes to guns.
I mean, it ends the gun debate because it doesn't. I mean, people who are going to do evil with guns aren't going to obey the laws. They already don't.
That's right.
Passing more laws isn't going to change anything.
Right. And the old saying is that if you outlaw guns, only outlaws have guns.
That's right.
Yeah. And that means that you're going to take peaceful people who are law-abiding and you're going to make them illegal folks. And this is really important, is that people who are concealed carry permit holders, they've done statistics on this and run the numbers, and they're actually less likely to commit a felony than a cop. And don't forget that cops get a certain level of deference, professional courtesy, as it were.
Sure.
It's just a little harder to convict a cop of a felony than it is your average person. So imagine how much safer a concealed carry permit holder is actually than a cop. And then, of course, I already believe this. Cops are safer than people who don't have concealed carry permits because they're less likely to be convicted. I should say they're less likely to be convicted. So, these people who have gone through the trouble of becoming a concealed carry permit holder are very safe people.
Let's go to your phone calls and thoughts here. We got Olivia on the line in Arizona. Go ahead, Olivia.
Hey, so for your regular listeners, I kind of feel like Free Talk Live feels like family, And the more a caller calls in, the more regular they are, the more they kind of feel like part of that family. So there. Oh, by the way, I'm really glad that Mark's back. It's really good to see him in the studio versus just this picture taped to the chair.
You don't like facsimile, Mark?
Well, it's better than nothing, right? To have a picture of me taped to the chair. But yeah.
I always thought it was funny.
It is funny. That's Captain's idea.
But,
He's the funniest of us.
But looks aren't everything.
So I guess I'm calling in to talk about Sarah in New Mexico and Dave in New Mexico, and I just wanted to start off with Sarah's really popular in the chat, and because I lurk on YouTube, and she's like that wacky aunt that you hear from a lot with all these wacky ideas, but it's just fun to listen to her.
I'm glad my aunt doesn't call me every day. I don't even know what we're going to talk about. Olivia, I know you had something to say there. We'll continue in a moment. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Of course, you can bring up anything that is on your mind.
Including your wacky aunt.
Sure. And also, your wacky aunt might be up at the National Mall this weekend with thousands of people pushing for gun control. If we get the chance, we'll talk more about what has been going on there.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio is great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and it's the live Saturday show, and phones are open if you want to join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're watching video, or at least I was, of the 3D printed rocket launcher.
Yeah.
We were talking about how 3D printing has changed the face of firearms.
Yes.
Meaning that it's now possible for an individual with no significant training in gun manufacturing to basically piece together their own gun with the Ghost Gunner products that are out there.
Well, the Ghost Gunner, I think, is a CNC machine as opposed to a 3D printer.
That's correct.
A 3D printer makes things out of nothing. A CNC machine makes something out of
something
else.
A
block of metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there is a distinction, but
all of these technologies, though, are putting the power of being able to create a gun from scratch, basically, into the hands of the individual. And we were talking about how many guns are in the United States.
Well, they're trying.
This adds a huge. It was already unknown, and this adds a huge unknown factor to it because there's no traceability whatsoever with these things.
Right, and there's also gun manufacturers online who are doing either the CNC or the 3D printed, where you can buy the kits. And basically, you just have to buy one kit, and then you have to buy another kit, and then those two kits, you need a couple of, home garage style tools, a drill, maybe a saw, maybe a file, stuff like that. And then you can actually assemble your own firearm by purchasing the pieces from people who are either 3D printing or doing the CNC.
One of the proposals that's on the table is to eliminate that in the wake of this.
To eliminate
the build your own gun kits, the 80% kits, is the 80%.
So just to prohibit blocks of metal from being sold?
Well, not just blocks of metal.
Tough.
The 80% lowers are different than a block of metal. So you can make the lower, and it's very similar, and then you can do it. You can mill it yourself without a CNC machine. You can mill it with just drill bits and some attachments. But I don't know of a single case. Not that I would think it would matter, but I don't know of a single case where one of these guns has been used
in a shooting,
in some mass shooting or something like that.
Yeah.
It probably happened, but why is this on the table? The solutions rarely have anything to do with the problems.
Let's go back to your calls here. Olivia was on the line. She was calling in about some of our other callers, specifically mentioning Sarah, who's a regular, what we call a chronic caller in the business. She basically calls this show every night. But worse, she's never actually listening when she calls, so she only hears whatever is on hold.
What I like about it is she always brings something new to the table.
Most of the time.
Sometimes it's Ouija boards. Sometimes it's the shapes she's seen in clouds. Other times, her communist meetings.
She has recently, at least on the Sunday edition of this program, had some pretty good calls. I'll defend her slightly.
I think she has good calls. I think there's nothing wrong with calling often.
Olivia, you're back on. Go ahead.
Yeah, what Mark said, I feel like she always has something at least different, and like I said, wacky. And you guys used to make these bumpers of like wacky callers, and you would play them between the commercials.
Yes.
And I always really enjoyed them, like the George W. Bush impressions and the fascist callers. And so I feel like if you just keep Sarah talking, you'll get some more gold, because she's just so out there, but like she's so passionate about it too. I don't know. And then
I like how she can just take it though. Like whatever it is that one of the hosts says, she wasn't listening.
No, she doesn't listen to a word.
She just goes on. Well, yeah.
Yes. She just goes on.
Because this is the important thing about getting your message across, is to stay positive. And she stays positive.
Stay focused.
Yep.
What else, Olivia?
I know. I love how she doesn't take it like too seriously. Like she's unthinkable. But as far as Dave goes, I just feel like he keeps harping on these judges, but I can't help but think he said he lives in the desert with no electricity. He goes to town once a month, and I feel like as somebody who hasn't spoken to one of their parents in years now, if his kids really wanted to get in touch with him, they would write, they would call, they would drive out there. I don't know how old they are.
Well,
but,
he's been calling so long, and he's told us the story so many times. I know that one of them is, I think, about to turn 18, if I recall correctly, and the other one might be a year or two younger than that. So if you take his side of the story as the truth, and obviously there's more than one side.
But the kids certainly have an age. And they have certainly grown older as he's been calling.
But if we were to take his story as true, then you can presume the mom has been brainwashing them into thinking that he is the evil incarnate, and that they should do no such thing as to reach out to their father. And so I don't know if it's not fair, because you never know what that other parent is doing or saying about the other side.
That's the difficulty of this scenario, is that the mom could have said anything. She could have accused him of anything, and he's not able to defend against it.
Right. He can't talk to him
because I can only imagine she's quite the peach too.
Thank you, Olivia, for the call tonight. Appreciate it. We continue here. Major Payne is on the line in Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
Major.
Hey, good evening, guys.
What's on your mind?
Go for the trifecta here right quick, if you'll bear with me. Real quick on the guns. This ain't part of the trifecta, but the best way to take one of these libtards that are gun-fearing is to cure them, is to take them shooting.
Yeah.
Let them feel how much fun it is.
Take your liberal friends shooting. It's the truth.
Yep.
And don't let them shoot the Mossberg, for God's sakes. Take them out.
22.
Take them out and let them shoot the AR, because this is what they're scared of.
Don't give them a 12 gauge or a 50 cal. Yeah.
Don't give them the Barretts.
I heard one little news blip on somebody that got busted with a ghost gun, but he just had it. Yeah. So they couldn't make a big to-do about it.
Somebody's wife snitched on him. Ex-wife.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
But oh, good God.
What else, Major?
Okay, I'm gonna roll in the mud real quick. Oh no, I already rolled in the mud. I was talking about taking a libtard shooting. The second one is old Uncle China Joe here has just claimed responsibility and said he's going to pick up the full tab for all the wildfires in New Mexico. Because guess why? They started them with a mandated federal burn.
Well, Uncle Joe's not going to pick up the tab. It will be the taxpayers that will be picking up that tab.
He's going to pass it on to his retarded nephews, that being us.
But, and your final point tonight, Major?
Well, on this 18-year-old kid in Texas that did that school shooting, he had over $6,000 of ammunition and accoutrements and was basically penniless. Now, what I'm thinking is the same thing went on with the Michigan militia here. He was baited by the feds. Somebody bankrolled that little
There's a good chance of that being the case. We haven't seen, obviously, those allegations have not come out yet. They may or may not need that in order to prove that. Wait, is he dead? No, he's dead. The kid in Buffalo survived. So the kid in
we'll probably never hear about it since he's dead.
Yeah, right. So we'll never find out what the truth is with the Uvalde shooter. Thank you, Major. But it's an interesting theory because it definitely proves to be the case in so many of these quote-unquote terrorist busts that the FBI makes, is that the FBI was involved from the day one.
Basically, there hasn't been a terrorist attack since 9/11 that the FBI wasn't involved with.
Right, yeah.
I mean, there are almost none.
None that have been infiltrated by, or none that have been busted by the FBI. All of them seems like the FBI was involved in from the word go. I think the one that they might not have been involved in was the Boston Marathon. Of course, that one happened.
Times Square van, too.
That wasn't them?
I don't think so. There have been a handful.
603.
But most of the terrorist attacks in the United States have been by the FBI.
603-283-6160. You can join us here. It's awfully coincidental that Uvalde happens to be where Matthew McConaughey was born. We're coming up.
There is no such thing as attention span, according to Jerry Seinfeld, who figures that people have an infinite attention span if you are entertaining them. Hey, he's kept us from channel surfing for several decades, and now he's making more millions as a Las Vegas headliner. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important, especially if you're looking for work. So choose every single word as though it was the last word the person you're speaking to will hear. Otherwise, it might be. Avoid redundancies such as added bonus, advance warning, end result, prior history, or personal belongings. And avoid cliches like the plague. Just kidding. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with more bad news for the US on inflation, up to another 40-year high, with the May number hitting 8.6%. President Biden addressed the news during a visit to Los Angeles.
Today's inflation report confirmed what Americans already know. Putin's price hike is hitting America hard. Gas prices at the pump, energy and food prices account for half of the monthly price increases since May. We needed to come down much more quickly.
But while the president blames Vladimir Putin for the inflationary spiral, his critics contend his own public spending is part of the problem. Friday brought a court ruling in London that means the British government is currently on track to deport a group of asylum seekers to Rwanda in the coming week. It's part of a controversial policy that will require asylum seekers to wait in the far-off African nation for their claims to move to the UK to be processed. Graham McGregor is a migrant rights activist who opposes the plan.
The UN High Commission for Refugees intervened in the case and have made very clear that the Rwandan asylum processing system is not fit for purpose in this case.
Boris Johnson ended the week still in power in the UK. That was in question at the start of the week.
The vote in favour of having confidence in Boris Johnson as leader was 211 votes, and the vote against was 148 votes.
But that means 41% of his fellow Conservative lawmakers wanted him gone. He called the vote decisive and insisted he'll refocus his government on the country's cost of living crisis. The House of Representatives passed a package of gun control measures that would raise the lawful age at which Americans can buy assault rifles from 18 to 21. But there's no sign the Senate agrees, and negotiations at a compromise acceptable to both sides are continuing. Thursday night witnessed a made-for-TV hearing in the US. The House of Representatives Select Committee investigating last year's January insurrection on Capitol Hill accused former President Donald Trump of launching an attempted coup.
Donald Trump, the President of the United States, spurred a mob of domestic enemies of the Constitution to march down the Capitol and subvert American democracy.
That's Congressman Benny Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi, with more. FSN's Washington correspondent Benji Hire.
The first in a series of hearings featured previously unseen material, including footage from filmmakers embedded within far-right protesters on the day, and testimony from police officers who sustained serious head injuries resisting the mob.
The Russians made more advances in eastern Ukraine over the course of the week. President Zelensky vowed to rebuild his country and said Kiev will not accept stalemate as an outcome. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. You can join us. The phones are open here at 603-283-6160. Whether you want to comment on the nationwide protests today, thousands in D.C., hundreds in other cities, 400 cities allegedly, that were protesting gun rights. These people are anti-gun. They want to see more federal government restrictions, state restrictions on gun ownership.
I'm going to just bring up the thing that I recently have been saying, and I think it holds true whenever the whole gun control thing comes up. If government wants to take away guns from individuals because it makes individuals more safe, then they need to be the first ones to put them down. Show us how it's done.
Be true leaders.
Be
right?
leaders.
Yeah.
Be leaders. Show us how it's done. Show us how to get government done, governing the people, right? Show them how they're going to do it without guns. They should be
That's
the
a great
first,
idea.
lead the way.
This is I believe the gun control debate shows the schizophrenia of the modern American government, of the Constitution, the whole thing. So we know that the First Amendment includes freedom of religion. We know that Maryland was a Catholic state, that Massachusetts was a Puritan state. We know that there was state religion at the time the Constitution was signed, and that there was no intent in order to undermine that. The Constitution said, was what the intention at the time was that the federal government would not create a state religion. That way the states, like Maryland and Massachusetts, would sign up. If you use that logic and apply it to the Second Amendment, you would say that a state can create whatever gun laws it wants to create, and that the federal government is the only one that can't. That they would be excluded from creating a gun law. Now, we obviously have the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and they aren't outlawing. They aren't as worried about tobacco and alcohol as they are firearms. I can assure you. There's lots of federal.
They want people to have tobacco and alcohol because they get to consume, charge a tax on a consumable.
So these things, that agency shouldn't exist. The federal government shouldn't be able to make a decision.
Yeah, the federal government shouldn't exist.
But, honestly, the states should be able to make their own laws. If New York wants to make it so that your magazine can only have 3 rounds, well, by God, they should be able to do that.
I disagree because and I just disagree with the statement that a state should be the idea of the state should not exist, and that's where I disagree.
If we don't have bad states, then how are we going to know? Because
all states are bad.
I don't know that I necessarily agree.
Some are less bad than others.
So are we talking about
is less bad than New York?
We're talking
by
about
a large
U.S. states.
factor.
Okay.
Yeah. The concept of statism exists in violation of consent.
So a state is an organization that claims a monopoly privilege over the use over government in a given landmass. Right?
It's people. It's people.
It's true. It's
psychopathic people who want to
an organization of people
rights
that wishes to claim. So but you don't have a problem with governance. You have a problem with governance that's
I have no
involuntary.
problem with self-governance or the consent to be governed.
And almost everybody would have to have that, because when you chose self-government, you wouldn't be able to watch yourself constantly. So you would have to choose private governance, likely security agencies, in order to keep you safe and things like that. Those are legitimate. And security agencies may very well say, sorry, you can't have a rocket launcher or a tank or a nuclear weapon. But they may say that you can have a shotgun. See, this is the thing, is that I don't know what a private government would say. But I do know that we have a current set of rules, and we call it the Constitution. So if you want to change it, go by the rules. And you have to pick between these
Well, they have rules. I didn't sign it.
They being the people,
government people.
Yeah, people.
They swore an oath to it. I did not.
Well, they only seem to care about the part that empowers them, not about the part that restricts them.
Yeah. Let's go to Jet. He's on the line in Kentucky. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian, the captain, and Mark.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to weigh in on this gun thing.
Sure.
I grew up with guns in the closet, guns on the wall. I actually literally bought my first rifle at age 12.
Wow.
No paperwork.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was it an air rifle or a regular rifle?
No, it was a 22.
22, okay.
Yeah. But I like to, whenever I'm approached by somebody who says, we should do this, I always want to have a question ready for them. And the one about guns is, are you willing, this is what the captain said too, is are you willing to remove or restrict these things from all people?
Right.
And I love to see their response, the blah, 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 type of thing. And then they say, well, other people, we live in a society makes the rules. But then I ask, well, why are you okay with strangers making rules over you?
Yes.
I just love to have these questions ready, because we're talking about the Second Amendment militia, You guys probably already covered this, but it was essentially every able-bodied male beyond the age of 17 and like 60 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Second Amendment, most people don't get this. It's not about allowing government to do anything. It's about restricting government and giving the power to the people. So the Second Amendment, when it says the right to keep and bear arms is for the people, and the reference to a regulated militia is the people. Again, it is not anything to do with government.
I'd agree.
Totally right.
Try to start a militia, and ask the government if you can start a militia. That's going to go well.
Yeah, well, there needs to be somebody like Gun Owners of America that kind of converts their membership into some form of militia
status.
Yeah.
I think they're outlawed in New Hampshire.
Well, the
Militias?
big thing
I
is
think
the
so.
training. I believe you could quell almost all these issues if people had training.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I was like I said, I had guns in the home. My father was a police detective who's also a gun training officer, whatever. I was in the military in 2 different branches. I've been a bodyguard. I had to have training for each one of these things. And if people would have to go through a training, even a certification from other members of the militia, let's say, we could eliminate a lot of these problems.
Yeah, and I think to your point too, Jet, it used to be, I think, even up until maybe the 60s, 50s, it's maybe the 40s, but like they used to have firearms training in public schools.
Yeah, people carry their rifles to school.
I was there. I used to take my shotgun to school.
Shotgun?
Nice.
What size? A 410 or
12 gauge?
12 gauge to school.
Yeah.
Huh.
Did you go on a bus or did you walk or?
No, I drove at that time.
Okay.
I was 16.
Well, yeah. So my point is that, I mean, the first rule of, if a place is going to be invaded, the most difficult place for an enemy invader to take over is a place that's heavily armed. So if government was really concerned about foreign invaders invading, they would likely do the opposite of what they're doing right now. They would encourage people to get guns or provide them for them, right? Because heavily armed populace, right? So that in and of itself. And then if you take that to its logical step, then you would want people to be trained and know how to use them. And so you would do things like have firearm safety training in schools.
Yeah. We even, in our pickups, even as teenagers in high school, had rifles and shotguns.
Yeah.
In the
back window. Yeah.
Even good old days.
Even
man.
in the 80s, kids would drive like their dad's trucks to school, and there'd be a couple rifles in the rack inside of the cab. They wouldn't bring them to the school like when I was going to school, but they were still there.
They'd be in the windows, and they were locked in the vehicle.
And no big deal.
I grew up same way. Dad's rifle was in the closet. It wasn't locked. There was no trigger lock. There was nothing like that. I was told repeatedly over time, you don't touch Dad's rifle. You've got your own. And it was an air rifle. Yeah. I got to play with mine. I got to use mine. I got to practice with mine. And then when it was time to go out and shoot and learn with his, I could do that. But only when him there.
Jet, thanks for the call tonight. I do appreciate hearing from you. Actually, according to Georgetown, University, they say that all 50 states prohibit private militias. Now, whether that means you can have a gun club or not is another question, but there's more coming up. At 603-283-6160, this is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here.
Free Talk Live.
I was a pedestrian, and an asinine cop backed up and hit me and knocked me down to the ground. And I said, I think we need to call the police, as I'm, screaming in pain. And he said, go ahead, I'm a cop too. And he left the scene of the accident.
Oh, wow.
So when the police and the ambulance and all the paramedics arrived to take me to the hospital, because I have knee damage now and need knee replacements to both knees because of his actions. And I told him, I said, I'm a registered nurse. I work drug and alcohol rehab. This guy was drunk. I could see it. I could tell by his his actions. He was drunk. And I said, I want a blood alcohol done on him. They knew who he was. They waited 6 hours to go to his home to arrest him. And, of course, by then he had sobered up.
Sure.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern. Live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Live Saturday show. Phones are open. You can join us. 603-283-6160 and bring up whatever you want. That's 603-283-6160. Tonight, it's Ian,
the captain,
and Mark.
We are going to continue with more of your calls and thoughts with people around the country marching so-called for their lives. Turns out what they ended up doing was stampeding to get away from someone who allegedly yelled the words gunshot. There's video of multiple angles of video of this stampede that happened in D.C. today.
Every day for our...
And then hundreds of people just start running, jumping fences, crushing each other, and...
Wow.
And this is why you don't get a large
Why
groups
are
of these,
people so fracking stupid?
Right. Yeah. If you can hear somebody yell gunshot, you would be able to hear the gunshot.
Yeah. In fact, the gunshot would be a lot louder than someone yelling. But
these are people that are raised on Hollywood movies, which suggest that you can fire a gun like a closed car and not be deaf. You know.
And they're raised on pure fear. As we were discussing with our caller earlier about guns in general, it's something they just don't understand. They're deathly afraid of it, and that's why they only want government people to have guns.
We had mentioned that guns in school, this is from National Review, it was common for schools to have shooting clubs. Even in New York City, virtually every public high school had a shooting club up until 1969. It was common for high school students to take their guns with them to school on the subways in the morning and turn them over to their homeroom teacher or the gym coach so that the heavy guns would simply be out of the way. After school, students would pick up their guns when it was time for practice.
The prohibition, by the way, on armed civilian groups, I've got the actual statute here in New Hampshire, which New Hampshire is known to be one of the most free places as far as gun ownership is concerned. But they say that, quote, no organization, society, club, post-order league, or other combination of persons or civil group or any members thereof are authorized to assume any semblance of military organization or character by bearing or possessing rifles, pistols, sabers, clubs, or military weapons of any kind.
No sabers.
Or wearing a military uniform of any kind.
What about a name like Captain? Is that okay?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think it has to be more than one person.
I'm wondering why they chose sabers. Of all the things to represent swords of any sort, why sabers? Sabers a sword that's used from mounted horseback.
Yeah, good question. This looks like it went into effect in 1981, so it wasn't.
Well, it was the Michigan militia thing.
Ah,
you're so scared.
Oh, right.
That was in the 90s. Wasn't
It was later than that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
So, but, there's obviously groups of people that meet together for the purposes of gun trainings. There's something called Gun Church here in New Hampshire that's gotten a lot of publicity. They meet regularly.
They just wrote a law. That's all. It's not like it has no meaning because it doesn't.
Well, is it enforced is the question. And if it is enforced, then a natural person...
they'll enforce it when they feel like it.
A natural person would be guilty of a misdemeanor unless they are some other sort of person, in which case then they're guilty of a felony. So I'm not sure what... Maybe they're talking about like a corporation or something
How do you...
what else is
what kind of criminal charge can you have against a corporation?
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy.
You can incarcerate a file folder? We've all got together and, because groups don't exist.
There's just people.
And sometimes they get together and they write things on paper. But if you lock paper up, we do that all the time. We call them filing cabinets.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see the last time, if ever, this particular statute has actually been used to prosecute somebody.
Yeah.
And, of course, it would also be very interesting to put this in front of a jury because people in New Hampshire love guns, and to see if anybody would ever convict their neighbors of this particular charge in the sort of the gun culture that is New Hampshire. I don't think it would fly. But let's go to Jill. She's in Virginia, listening on the radio. Go ahead, Jill.
By the way, what if you're on the way to a Naval Reserve meeting and you're wearing a uniform? I don't think they could arrest you for that.
No, they wouldn't target government agents.
Oh, I see. Anyhow, what I'm saying is that where it says something in the Second Amendment about a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state.
Yeah.
Yeah. You regulate the militia by making it fear the citizens. You make it fear the citizens by having the citizens be armed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that people seem to forget, or maybe they conveniently...
Well, the militia is supposed to be the people. We don't have militias today. Right. We have government agents organized in violent methods against the people, which is not what a militia was.
And she's spot on. Governments should fear the people. People should not fear the governments. We're in opposite land right now.
Yeah, that would change a lot of things.
Clearly, government was created. If it was created by people, it was created in order to protect people.
That's what they say.
Yeah, that's the idea.
But then the Supreme Court says they have no obligation to protect you.
On one hand, you can't have a modern rule book, and on the other hand, laud the fact that we have the oldest governing document in the world. You got to pick one or the other.
Jill, anything else you want to share?
Well, I read someone said that Ayn Rand said the government exists to protect man from criminals, and the Constitution exists to protect man from the government.
Like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that didn't really work out very well. Thank you, Jill, for the call tonight. Let's talk to Dustin. He's on the line in Kansas. Dustin, you're on Free Talk Live.
Firearms' only definition is to kill living life forms. If you take the pistol that represents seven heaven or religious righteousness and you stick down that copper penny to aim at George, to have the only copper penny because of the firearms black metal melt, you're looking at the statue in the Lincoln Monument or Lincoln's right earlobe.
Mark, you're following this, right?
I have what? So as a copper penny?
Firearms only definition is to kill living life forms.
That's not really true. That's not true. You could go target practice with them.
You can do that, but I mean, but really, what's the point?
To target practice, you're aiming for bullseye. You're aiming to kill.
The eye of a bull?
You're aiming to kill.
Just bulls.
You let Jet talk.
We did let Jet talk.
Yes.
Now, the firearms.
Are you calling Jet crazy?
I'm saying you're crazy if you have a firearm because the seventh heaven or the religious righteousness of the pistol and the attraction
now that's
of the
where
black
you're
hole.
losing me, Dustin. The seventh heaven.
The attraction of the black hole on the barrel.
Now you got to focus here. What is the seventh heaven, and what does it have to do with guns
and pistols?
The pistol is formed as a 7,
because it looks like a 7,
right?
Because a gun looks like a 7. Okay, I see. I get where you're coming from there. Now, what's that have to do with the penny? Was it or the?
Yeah, the Lincoln Memorial and the penny.
The only reason we have copper pennies upon the what would that be on the nickel, dime, quarter?
Coppers on the penny.
And the dollar. What would that be?
Well, I want to blow your mind because they
quarter.
say, Dustin, that they're going to get rid of the penny next year. Did you hear that one?
Did you hear that that's only because we must have the end of the firearm? Did you know the NRA?
I'm sorry to say that's never going to happen, Dustin. The guns are never going to go away.
You let Ted talk.
Ted?
Did you know the NRA? Did you know the NRA stands for Nazi Racist Americans?
I thought it was National Rifle Association.
John Quincy Adams wrote The Philosophy of Nasser-Schmidt.
Hey, Dustin, how come government has guns then?
I believe the police officers would take a billy club. A gun does kill people. It's not that people.
Well, I do agree with Dustin that the police should only have non-gun weapons. I think that would actually be an improvement on the police. I know there's been a lot of talk about abolishing the police. We know that's not very likely, but maybe we could just take the guns away from the cops. I think that would be a good start.
A good start.
Yeah, I think that would. Thank you, Dustin, for the call tonight. He's always really hard to figure out, Mark. You looked confused. You didn't.
I did. I did not understand
him.
Seventh Heaven and the pistol and that kind of thing.
And being from Kansas, all he is Dustin the Wind.
Yeah, Dustin the Wind. I did like that. That was the first thing I thought of when he said Dustin, Kansas.
Yeah, unfortunately,
in the wind.
Guns aren't going to disappear. It doesn't matter what amount of regulations there are. It doesn't matter if all the things that this crowd of people in Washington, D.C. want to see passed are passed. They're not going to get rid of guns. Certainly, the criminals are not going to get rid of their guns. They're not going to hand them over. Even if quote-unquote law-abiding people are so foolish as to turn their guns over, which would be a huge mistake if they did that, the people to whom guns really matter are not going to. They're going to hold on to them. And others, maybe they will turn theirs over, and then they'll print some out silently and keep them quietly.
As technology increases, the idea that you're going to get rid of guns gets less and less likely. And, there's just nothing you can do about it. You can keep trying to squeeze your fist harder and harder, and more will slip through your fingers.
We got more coming up, and hour number 3 is on the way here on this live Saturday episode of Free Talk Live. The phones are open as well. You can join us and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Whether it's guns or whatever's on your mind, it is Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with more bad news for the US on inflation, up to another 40-year high, with the May number hitting 8.6%. President Biden addressed the news during a visit to Los Angeles.
Today's inflation report confirmed what Americans already know. Putin's price hike is hitting America hard. Gas prices at the pump, energy and food prices account for half of the monthly price increases since May. We needed to come down much more quickly.
But while the president blames Vladimir Putin for the inflationary spiral, his critics contend his own public spending is part of the problem. Friday brought a court ruling in London that means the British government is currently on track to deport a group of asylum seekers to Rwanda in the coming week. It's part of a controversial policy that will require asylum seekers to wait in the far-off African nation for their claims to move to the UK to be processed. Graham McGregor is a migrant rights activist who opposes the plan.
The UN High Commission for Refugees intervened in the case and have made very clear that the Rwandan asylum processing system is not fit for purpose in this case.
Boris Johnson ended the week still in power in the UK. That was in question at the start of the week.
The vote in favour of having confidence in Boris Johnson as leader was 211 votes, and the vote against was 148 votes.
But that means 41% of his fellow Conservative lawmakers wanted him gone. He called the vote decisive and insisted he'll refocus his government on the country's cost of living crisis. The House of Representatives passed a package of gun control measures that would raise the lawful age at which Americans can buy assault rifles from 18 to 21. But there's no sign the Senate agrees, and negotiations at a compromise acceptable to both sides are continuing. Thursday night witnessed a made-for-TV hearing in the US. The House of Representatives Select Committee investigating last year's January insurrection on Capitol Hill accused former President Donald Trump of launching an attempted coup.
Donald Trump, the President of the United States, spurred a mob of domestic enemies of the Constitution to march down the Capitol and subvert American democracy.
That's Congressman Benny Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi, with more. FSN's Washington correspondent Benji Hire.
The first in a series of hearings featured previously unseen material, including footage from filmmakers embedded within far-right protesters on the day and testimony from police officers who sustained serious head injuries resisting the mob.
The Russians made more advances in eastern Ukraine over the course of the week. President Zelensky vowed to rebuild his country and said Kiev will not accept stalemate as an outcome. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. After those inflation numbers, investors in the US this week will focus their attention on an upcoming Federal Reserve meeting. The Fed is expected to announce another interest rate rise when the meeting wraps up on Wednesday. With the preview from FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo.
Traders expect the Fed to raise interest rates by 50 basis points when they convene this week. But with price pressures continuing to grow, investors will be looking to see whether the US central bank will seek to take more aggressive action. Fed Chair Jerome Powell is slated to deliver remarks at the conclusion of the two-day meeting on Wednesday. William Denslow, New York.
Australia's new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has held his first face-to-face meeting with New Zealand's leader Jacinda Ardern. They discussed a range of issues overshadowed by China's expansion in the region. Sean Bindley covered that story for us from Brisbane.
Jacinda Ardern says the change of government in Australia offers the chance to reset the relationship. The pair discussed a number of issues, including climate change policy and a push to ease Australia's deportation rules.
The discussions really represented the opportunity for a reset, and I felt that in the dialogue that we had today.
Ms Ardern is the first foreign leader to visit Australia since Mr Albanese became Prime Minister last month.
The Prime Minister and I are determined to take trans-Tasman relations to a new level. What that means is new jobs, new growth, new opportunities to cooperate.
In Brisbane, I'm Sean Bindley.
In the week ahead, the average price of a gallon of petrol in America may top $5. There'll be a vote on Capitol Hill to expand security for Supreme Court justices ahead of their controversial anticipated abortion ruling. And a top British official will be in Washington trying to defuse tensions over the Brexit-related Northern Ireland Protocol. Those stories here and on Twitter at Feature Story. And that is the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
Following the conclusion of yet another day marked by a litany of tedious and unavoidable realities, The Onion spoke with sociologist Dr. Timothy Coghill, who told reporters that the nation would be forced to go through all of it again tomorrow.
As our projections demonstrate, tomorrow, like today, every man, woman, and child in America will wake up and do it all again. All of it, including traffic, the workday, bad coffee, your kid's soccer game, laundry, the struggling economy.
Statistical evidence also showed that the nation would once again endure traumatic childhood memories, Twitter, anxiety, poverty, consumerism, rampant abuses of the legal system,
joint pain, racial inequality, global warming, the steady erosion of civil liberties, violence, loneliness, disease, unresolved intimacy issues, the ravages of age, hunger, sexual frustration, existential dread, the looming specter of death.
For more on this unending story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour here on this live Saturday episode. The number is 603-283-6160 with thousands of people protesting in Washington, D.C. and other places all around the country today in favor of gun restrictions. These people do not love freedom. They hate it, and they want less of it. And that's what they are getting out there. It's the March of Our Lives so-called rallies that are happening. We didn't really get a chance to talk about much of what they're saying, but you could probably guess. It's the same old, quote-unquote, enough is enough, according to the D.C. mayor who spoke at one of these rallies. And, you know, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they want politicians to do something about it.
But the politicians in D.C. have done something about gun control.
They've passed thousands of laws.
They've passed so many laws, the United States Supreme Court came out and told them to stop. Or something to that effect.
Yeah, so they want more, though, and you guys have been calling in all night.
Well, I love it that they, they think that they understand that their laws are ineffective, so they want more laws outside of the region that they don't rule. I mean,
they want all of the laws, everywhere, all of the time, times 10, because they think that'll make a difference.
I know what irresponsible people are like. Irresponsible people are constantly blaming others for their failings. If a politician wants less crime in their given geographic area, they have many tools at their disposal. And if they have managed to get you, the voter, to believe that somehow it is some other politician's responsibility, you've fallen for the trick.
Yep, lots of people have called in to share their thoughts on gun restrictions and gun rights here tonight, and we're going to continue taking your calls First up, we've got Tony. He's on the line in Arkansas, listening to Texarkana. Go ahead, Tony. You're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I just wanted to call and tell you that it's not all gloom and doom when it comes to gun ownership and gun the youth in America.
Okay, what's the good news?
Well, we got a program here in Arkansas, and I'm sure it's in a lot of the southern states. It may be worldwide, I don't know, but we have a program, Arkansas Youth Shooting Sports, and my son started this year in the 7th grade at 13 years old, and he has shot a gun all of his life, but they shoot trap, which is the clay pigeons that throw out. It's competition.
Right.
It's more of a competition. But their main goal is teaching like gun ownership, responsibility, safety, how to handle them, what to do with a gun. And, a little background, when I was growing up in the 80s, I would walk down to catch the school bus and take my 20 gauge and shoot a bunch of squirrels. And when I got on the school bus, I'd hand my shotgun and the squirrels to Mr. Jones, the school bus driver. And he would take them. And when I got off of school, out of school, and he'd give me half of the squirrels that were clean, my gun back. And, we never thought twice about if there was a fight at school. You never thought that, I got a gun in my truck, or I got a gun, we go. But, I just think that most of the nation is still on board with firearms.
I hope so. And you're right. It's certainly having classes like you're talking about for young people is very important, because the young people in the United States, if they're going to government schools, they are getting pounded with propaganda, anti-gun propaganda.
Right, and it's our responsibility as parents to prevent that.
Right, and the number one thing you can do as a parent is to get your kids out of government school, because, if you...
I kind of disagree with that.
Really?
Go ahead.
You enjoy a large organization filled with thieves and criminals propagandizing your children for 8 hours a day for 12 years?
Right. Why would you want to send your kids to government school? It's like a terrible place.
Okay, when you got 95% of the population going to government schools, we can't all get out of government
Sure
schools.
You can. Just walk away.
No.
Yeah, a little bit of effort.
Not all of us.
Well, my son was homeschooled for some time. It's surprisingly easy.
What does it cost to homeschool?
Almost nothing, but you could buy a curriculum.
I don't know.
Well, no, I wasn't asking you, Tony. I was asking Mark here in the studio, who actually did homeschool his son. Would you say it's less than a few $1,000s a year for the curriculums and stuff like that? It's
less than you're spending on school clothes, school supplies, books, and these sorts of things. I would say that you're...
Is it less than the taxes I'm paying to send my kids to government school?
Well, that's the thing, is that you're certainly paying tax to send...
That's why we have to fight to have our kids, prevent our kids from being indoctrinated.
But when I was homeschooling my son, I was still paying tax to the government to educate other people's kids.
Why?
I wish I knew why.
Because you're afraid they're going to steal your house.
Because they'll take my house if I don't.
Okay. Well, that's even more reason.
Well,
that's not a reason to send kids to a government school, man. You're putting your kids in constant danger of being brainwashed, let alone getting shot to death by some psychopath or whatever, arrested by a cop, thrown up against a wall, having their head smashed in by some crazed cop or whatever on a power trip. That happens.
Okay. Well, yeah, it may done, and it may have happened for the past 100 years.
Yeah. Hey, Tony, thanks for the call tonight, man. I do appreciate it. Hey, some people want to keep their kids in government school, and if they think it's somehow worthwhile, I wish them the best. But good luck, because you have no idea what's going on there.
If your kids are getting physically assaulted by the teachers and the principals and the staff at the school every day, and came home black and blue every day and bloodied and all that kind of stuff every day, you would pull them out as soon as possible.
Why would you go to the PTA meeting and rally to try to change the system?
Right. So why would you put up with them mentally abusing your children? Because that's what's happening. They are subjected to mental abuse. The state is mentally abusing your children by propagandizing them.
Yep. every day.
I call it middle class welfare babysitting day prison, and it's because, and I'll break it down for you. I call it middle class welfare because middle class people still accept the notion of sending their kids to government school, along with the lower classes, whom we say must have free school because otherwise the kids wouldn't go to school. Is what the idea is.
Great.
It's rare.
It's not go to school and get a real education in the real world.
Right.
It's rare that you'll hear upper class people. Upper class people say, "Hey, look, I don't care what you tax me at. I'm not sending my kid there."
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting that.
A lot of teachers, by the way, also don't send their kids to government school.
It's a far disproportionate percentage of teachers that refuse to send their kids to government school teachers. So day prison, middle class welfare, babysitting day prison.
Mm-hmm.
Parents want to be able to work. Both parents want to be able to work, and so somebody's got to watch the kids in that amount of time. Now, obviously, if a kid is of a certain age, my son's 14, he could manage himself if that's what we decided to do as a family.
Yeah.
We don't think it's a good idea. We send him now to another school, to a private school. But, we did homeschool for some time. And you know what? There was never a problem with his integrating into the top-end private school at grade level. Never was an issue. So
one of the things that I really like about New Hampshire and the Free State Project and this ongoing migration of liberty-loving people, is the people that come to New Hampshire that have kids or are going to have kids, they get this. They understand the danger of government school. They get that they will be forced under the threat of their house being stolen to pay for the crap can government schools, but they know better than to send their kids to those government schools. And so they're starting to create alternatives.
Right.
They're creating systems, voluntary educational systems outside of the government to I'm not just talking about like your typical send your kids to private school, but like make your own private school, make your own unschooling center, that kind of thing. Extracurricular activities, things like that. They're doing this as a community, and people that are out there that actually care about liberty and value educational freedom, you got to get to New Hampshire and join the libertarian migration.
And it's worth mentioning that New Hampshire has a bit of legislation where if you do homeschool your kids, you can actually get that amount of tax money that would normally go to schooling your kids in public school.
Don't they call it Honduras? You won't pay for any of this stuff.
Don't they call it education savings accounts?
I believe it has some sort of term like that.
It's pretty new. It just came out within the last year or so, and it's become incredibly popular. In fact, the program got filled up. I think they have to expand the budget for it. And boy, are the teachers' unions pissed about it. More coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Join us here on the live Saturday episode. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Everything from guns to education. We just got into that with a caller advocating for people to keep going to government schools, the caller was. And we say, no way.
Well, and the thing is, reading, writing, and arithmetic are the fundamental things you need to educate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have those three things, if there's a topic you want to learn about, it's pretty easy to do. You can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. You can operate a calculator. You can read language. You can write or type, I guess. I don't know if even cursive's taught these days. But once you have those three things, and those three things can be taught to children far faster and easier outside of the public school system.
Sure.
Yeah, it absolutely can. It's that's the truth is that those things, reading, writing, arithmetic, those can be taught honestly by
the three
sixth grade.
R's, as they say in the South, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah, it's the whole Beverly Hillbillies thing. They can be done by sixth grade, and then you wonder what the rest of it's for. Now, I would say that time should be spent on critical thinking. The critical thinking is something that is no one spends any time on in government school. In fact, quite the opposite. They don't want you critically thinking about something. They don't want you to have the ability to logic through a problem. Because if you did that, you might come up with solutions that were not state sanctioned.
Right. You might not believe what the teachers were saying.
And let me ask you this, ladies and gentlemen. If an organization controlled education, any organization besides government, controlled education, what do you think your opinion, the opinion of the students of that would be of that organization? Don't you think that organization would take the time inside of its schools to create opinions amongst the young minds full of mush, as they say? To say, wow, this organization's really, really great. I mean, what do you think your opinion of, say, Walmart would be if Walmart ran all the schools?
Or Apple. Right.
Or, I don't know, how about the Catholic Church? What do you think the people's opinion, largely, of the Catholic Church is that go to Catholic schools? Now, I'm not trying to say anything about the Catholic religion. I'm just saying that most people who walk out of Catholic school probably have a pretty high estimation of the Catholic Church because they've gone to the Catholic school for a long time and been told it's really great. This is the truth about government school. Don't expect your kid to have a reasonable opinion about government if you send them to a government school.
Yeah, expect them to come out with belief in gun control, with belief that the world's going to end in the next couple of years due to environmental disaster, which is a big thing now. They have what they call, quote-unquote, eco-anxiety amongst young people today.
Every time there's a school shooting, they send an email home from my son's school saying, hey, if you need counseling for something that didn't happen.
And this is a private school?
This is a private school, absolutely.
We go to Robert in California, listening in Eureka. Go ahead. Robert.
Yeah, I want to run something by you guys about gun issues.
Sure.
Everybody wants to be happy about this. And so my solution is that you make the rifle range, the Las Vegas, more, and you have restaurant, you have a gym, you have a playground. Then you have lockers for all the guns. You get all your guys together, and you have a gun cleaning party, but you leave the high-tech items in the locker, and you go home.
What's the high-tech? Guns?
Phones?
Yeah, AR-15s.
Okay. So you want people to have AR-15s, but only at this mall where they can shoot.
Yeah, and they take the whole family there, and they make a big deal out of it, and they have fun playing with their guns, and when the day's all over, they put them away and they go home.
Do you think that the rooftop Koreans during the Rodney King riots would have thought that it was a good idea to not have their ARs convenient at the time?
No.
Yeah. Do you think the black people that were surrounded by angry white lynchers in Rosewood, do you think that they would have liked the idea that their rifles weren't available to them?
No.
Yeah.
I'm talking about maybe a solution going forward to try to make everybody happy. So the people that are afraid,
I don't think that's going to make people happy. I don't think that's going to make the people happy who actually want to defend themselves or want to have guns around for the purpose of self-defense, and whether it be at their home or their business or wherever they happen to be.
If the people who are protesting here, if the people in these protests would take responsibility for themselves, then that would solve the problem.
What I wanted to say is that aside from the normal protection weapons, you get a handgun, you keep it at home. You get a rifle because you're a hunter, but you don't get an AR-15 on the street. You got to play with it at the gun club.
Why?
Why? Because they're threatening to everybody else, and they can be in the hands of people.
No, they're not. They're not threatening to everybody else. This is the view of a person who lives in California. It's probably fairly common for someone living in California or Massachusetts or something like that, where there's a tremendous amount of fear surrounding guns. When I see a gun on somebody's hip who's not a cop, I feel better about where it is I am, because I know that that person is likely somebody who is someone who's concerned for safety, somebody who understands.
Yeah, but that person doesn't have an AR-15 on their hip.
I don't care if they do.
Well, an AR-15 is difficult to carry in sort of public, and I don't think that I don't personally believe in sort of long gun carry out in public, but that's just a choice that I'm
talking about.
I hear you.
Well, no, you also said people should keep their pistols at home,
No,
sir.
I think that people should have their ARs at home. The reason is that they should have an AR at home.
I want him to clarify this. You said you didn't say keep pistols at home?
No, I said you can keep a pistol at home for self-defense. You can keep a rifle
What
at
if
home
I want
for
the
hunting.
pistol on me when I'm walking around?
That's okay.
Okay, great. Well, we can agree on that much.
That's not a...
What if I want to
an
open carry it?
AR-15
What if I want to
assault
open carry the pistol?
That's fine, too.
Okay,
it's
great.
not an AR-15 assault weapon.
Okay, I have a question. Why do you think it's okay for you to tell other people what they can and can't do?
I'm not saying that either. I'm making a suggestion.
Well, your suggestion is that people do what you think they should do. Why do you get to make that decision for them?
Okay, let me rephrase that. That is my opinion.
And if it's fine if he wants to persuade people to think in the same way, and then he wants to live in a place where they all agree to not carry AR-15s or any other long guns around. I think that's totally fine. And this comes back to what you were saying before, Mark, is that people who have similar viewpoints on things like gun restrictions or educational freedom or whatever it is we're talking about should get together. People that love this idea should move out to Eureka and be around.
No, Eureka's the country. They want to be able to have their guns in Eureka. They should move to San Francisco.
Isn't Eureka a highly liberal leftist city in California?
I don't think it is.
I believe it is. Robert?
Robert?
Yeah, we're progressive.
Yeah, quite. Oh. Thank you for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. In fact, our radio station out there is a progressive, one of the few progressive talk stations
I did not know
left in the United States. KGOE. More coming up here in moments. You can join us. The number 603-283-6160. Thank you, Robert, for that call. This is Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with more bad news for the US on inflation, up to another 40-year high, with the May number hitting 8.6%. President Biden addressed the news during a visit to Los Angeles.
Today's inflation report confirmed what Americans already know. Putin's price hike is hitting America hard. Gas prices at the pump, energy and food prices account for half of the monthly price increases since May. We needed to come down much more quickly.
But while the president blames Vladimir Putin for the inflationary spiral, his critics contend his own public spending is part of the problem. Friday brought a court ruling in London that means the British government is currently on track to deport a group of asylum seekers to Rwanda in the coming week. It's part of a controversial policy that will require asylum seekers to wait in the far-off African nation for their claims to move to the UK to be processed. Graham McGregor is a migrant rights activist who opposes the plan.
The UN High Commission for Refugees intervened in the case and have made very clear that the Rwandan asylum processing system is not fit for purpose in this case.
Boris Johnson ended the week still in power in the UK. That was in question at the start of the week.
The vote in favour of having confidence in Boris Johnson as leader was 211 votes, and the vote against was 148 votes.
But that means 41% of his fellow Conservative lawmakers wanted him gone. He called the vote decisive and insisted he'll refocus his government on the country's cost of living crisis. The House of Representatives passed a package of gun control measures that would raise the lawful age at which Americans can buy assault rifles from 18 to 21. But there's no sign the Senate agrees, and negotiations at a compromise acceptable to both sides are continuing. Thursday night witnessed a made-for-TV hearing in the US. The House of Representatives Select Committee investigating last year's January insurrection on Capitol Hill accused former President Donald Trump of launching an attempted coup.
Donald Trump, the President of the United States, spurred a mob of domestic enemies of the Constitution to march down the Capitol and subvert American democracy.
That's Congressman Benny Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi, with more. FSN's Washington correspondent Benji Haya.
The first in a series of hearings featured previously unseen material, including footage from filmmakers embedded within far-right protesters on the day and testimony from police officers who sustained serious head injuries resisting the mob.
The Russians made more advances in eastern Ukraine over the course of the week. President Zelensky vowed to rebuild his country and said Kiev will not accept stalemate as an outcome. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us. The phones are open if you want to join in here at 603-283-6160. You can also call us on our SIP line. You can go to sip.freetalklive.com to learn how to connect to it. It does take a few steps to get it set up, but once you get that done, it's just a quick press of the button, and then you're connected to us, and you'll sound a lot better in a lot of cases. sip.freetalklive.com. And if you want liberty in your lifetime, Mark is going to be heading over to the Free Cities Foundation annual conference.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Called Liberty in Our Lifetime. Is this like year number 2 for this?
That's right.
Okay. It is happening in Prague. Was that where it was last year?
No, last year it was in Switzerland.
All right.
I got to, by the way, it was in Eastern Switzerland? Yeah, Eastern Switzerland, so it was right by Liechtenstein.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've heard that's a pretty free place.
I went there, and I would say that it is free in so much as there's not a lot of intrusion in your life, but, you know, like, it's a hard place to move to.
Why?
Because they just don't want you there.
Yeah, I hear that
they control their freedom by controlling immigration.
I hear that Liechtenstein is one of the freest places on the planet, but it never shows up in any of the rankings because it doesn't have enough population.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
It's basically like a city-state, right? It's not very large at all.
Well, it's bigger than that. I mean, it's several towns strung together. It's basically a county in a canton. It's essentially a rogue canton of Switzerland.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it's technically still part of Switzerland, but not really?
It's sort of Switzerland's the big brother. Not part of Switzerland.
Learn more about what are the different options around the world, the different communities springing up, offering opportunities for settlers to live freer lives. This is something you've been following very closely, Mark, in the last roughly half a decade. The conference theme this year is Parallel Structures for Progress. The discount for Free Talk Live listeners is 20%. You can save that by using code FTL20 over at their website, lifetimeliberty.com. The event again in Prague, October 21st through the 23rd. You can follow their Twitter account at handle @LibertyIOL, like Liberty in Our Lifetime. And you can get your tickets soon. Get the early bird discount while it's still available. Plus, if you want to buy it in Bitcoin, you can drop them a line directly to inquire through their Twitter. In that case, lifetimeliberty.com, code FTL20 saves you 20% on the Free Cities Foundation's conference, Liberty in Our Lifetime, coming up in October.
It was a really great event the last time. And
how many people were there? Couple hundred?
300.
That's really good for a first year.
Yeah, it was really great for a first year, and I think it's going to be so much bigger this go around.
Wow.
The Europeans, well, for one, they don't have as many libertarian events, so they're much more likely to go to one of them. And they look at liberty differently than Americans do. And I think that that's it's worth hearing what they have to say. I think it's a great event, and if you need an excuse to go to Prague, well, there it is.
There you go.
It's.
I was going to say, when I was doing the band thing, we were trying to arrange a show in Prague. I met a guy through a work thing where his family had a place, and we were trying to get a free place to stay, and so all we had to do was pay like airfare and rent some instruments and go play a show over in Prague, but it just never materialized, and I regret that.
I imagine the airfare wasn't cheap back then either.
No.
Let's go to your calls and thoughts. Jacob is in South Carolina listening to WRNN in Myrtle Beach. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hi there.
Hey.
I just wanted to make a few comments on the gun control continuation of the conversation before. So, in South Carolina, I've grown up in the country my whole life, and like I sleep with. I don't, it's not legal for me to carry a pistol on me. I have a rifle. Growing up, I lived out in the country. I mean, I would call myself a liberal. I mean, I'm pretty just see how it goes, politician to politician. So have a lot of liberal friends too, and a lot of right now I live in a suburb. Okay. I feel completely safe. And all my friends, I mean, it's not a worry. But growing up in the country, there's just things that growing up these like people in liberal cities, like even in Charlotte, I've got friends, and they just don't understand what it's like to live out in the country and call the police and wait maybe 30 minutes for someone to get to you.
That can happen in the city too.
Right. And I mean, let's not forget that there's criminal instances where seconds count and the cops are still 10 minutes away. I mean, even if the cops show up in 10 minutes, what are they? A very fast cleanup crew.
Mm-hmm. And again, the Superior Court or the courts have ruled that police have zero duty to protect you.
That's right.
It's true.
I really don't think, though, that in somewhere like New York City, I don't think anyone should be in possession of a gun at all. Like, it's just not the place for it. There's nowhere to shoot in the city.
Indoor gun range.
You shoot at the person who's threatening you.
I suppose if you feel threatened, why wouldn't you want to have a concealed carry weapon on you if you're in a place where you feel like crime might occur?
What I'm saying, for a gun ban makes sense in a place like a city. Well,
why? So only criminals have guns? Because the criminals aren't going to listen to your gun ban, right?
That's why I think that there's not really a solution that can solve for everyone.
Okay, so don't take guns away from people that aren't criminals.
They should have done something long time ago. Before, like modern weapons. Well, the Second Amendment was created before the modern handgun. Like, they didn't have bullets.
The First Amendment was created before computers. Do you think we should limit what people say online?
That's not the point. You could have said anything.
Modern technology
Some people
changed.
do. Some people do believe that.
People killed people back then, too.
Yeah, I mean, we live in New Hampshire. Manchester obviously isn't as urban as New York City, but it's a city with over 100,000 people living in it, and people have guns there all over the place, and it's totally fine.
It just depends. I'm for banning the sale of assault weapons, and
why do you get to choose? Why does your opinion get to decide who gets to own what property? What gives you the right to decide what other people can and cannot own?
For the security and safety of the citizens.
Well, the security and the safety of the citizens was determined by having assault weapons in situations like the Rodney King riots when the rooftop Koreans got up there. Would you want to go take their weapons away so that their businesses were set on fire? I mean, there were people who were able to defend just recently in the last 2 years when the riots were occurring across the United States, be able to defend their businesses because they had rifles.
The cops were nowhere to be found.
Did you want to take that away from them? The cops had their stations set on fire.
I don't know about all that.
Thank you,
Jacob.
Jacob.
It's the truth.
Well, there you go. And thanks for the call tonight. And the point about, and I do appreciate the perspective.
Look, I don't like the idea of people going out and shooting people, innocent people randomly. I'm not advocating
Almost
for that.
never happens.
Well, but it does. The news picks up the stories here and there. It does happen. Every once in a while, somebody goes out and does something bad. Now, they're less likely to do it with an AR. They're less like murders are far less likely to occur with an AR than they are with a hammer or a knife.
Yeah, the thing is, when somebody uses the excuse they did with you, Captain, it's because for the good of society. Well, who decides what is good for society? Right. Who decides? And there's different viewpoints on what is good.
America isn't even a society. Like, these are the people who want to ban things across the entire United States. And not the young gentleman that was just calling in. He was saying specifically in urban areas, which I think is interesting that you're making the distinction. I like the distinction being made. But I don't see
people
any
in
point
cities have rights too.
Right.
And
There's
the right
cities
to
in
yourself.
Texas where people can own guns. There's cities in Arizona where people own guns.
Let's talk to Peakless Mountaineer in New Hampshire, normally here with us on Saturday night. Appreciate you stepping away so Mark could be in. What's on your mind?
Just real quick before I get into it, you were asking about sabers and natural persons.
Yeah.
The reason that sabers are associated with military garb is they're the only sword that you'll find both in the cavalry and on a ship, as well as the Marines. And a natural person is what you and I think of as a person.
Indeed. The question is, what is a non-natural person? I presume that means corporation.
Corporation.
Yeah.
Corporation, basically.
Criminal?
How do you charge a corporation with a felony, though? That's really the question. Hang on. I know you were calling in for some other reason, so stand by. More with Peakless Mountaineer. Your calls and thoughts are welcome in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live, which are imminent. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones are open here if you want to join in. The number is 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian,
the Captain,
and Mark.
If you missed a moment of the show, you can always go and download the latest episodes over at freetalklive.com. You'll find them right there if you're on the full browser, not your mobile. It'll be on the left-hand side. If you're on the mobile browser, it's probably easier to just click the Listen menu and then go to Archives, and you'll find them there. So head over to freetalklive.com. You can also subscribe to Free Talk Live via our podcast. We touched earlier tonight on the technology of podcasts. You do need to have a podcast client of some sort. A lot of people use iTunes. I don't know why, but they do. And so you take our RSS feed from feeds.freetalklive.com. You plug it into your favorite podcast client, and then you receive every episode of the show as they are released. If you would prefer a smaller amount of content, you can subscribe to our feeds that only have, say, the Daily Digest, which has 20 or 30 minute shows every single day, sort of cut down from our full 2 or 3 hour shows.
Sometimes it's usually it's 40 minutes.
Okay. I don't listen often to the Digest.
I love
so
it.
I don't know.
I think the Digest is just great.
I agree.
Normally when I look at them, they're like close to 30. But anyway, that's what's there for you. That's an option. And then there's also the full shows only feed. So we've got a few different feeds. You can go and subscribe to whichever one you want over at feeds.freetalklive.com. We go back to Peakless Mountaineer on the line in New Hampshire. Go ahead. You're on Free Talk Live. You're back.
Yeah, so I was looking over these documents that got declassified because a couple of senators are like, hey, this Disinformation Governance Board is just targeting American speech, in particular our kind of American speech. So I was looking through the declassified documents and some interesting stuff. So for one thing, they're like, oh, no, we're not talking to any of the social media people. And then in their own document, it's like, yes, you have previously met with Twitter's Vice President of Public Policy and Philanthropy for the Americas.
Wow. I didn't know this information had come out. Was this just recently?
Yeah, pretty darn recently. But yeah, all these documents just got declassified by a couple of senators. Wow. But there's this one particular bit where it's the key objectives for why they were meeting with the Twitter people.
I'm sure it's for our best interest.
Oh, I'm sure. This meeting is an opportunity to discuss operationalizing public-private partnerships. And I don't know what that means, but I don't think I like it.
Well, it sounds like government and private partnerships.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's that, yes. Private by what they mean is Twitter. You know?
Yep. But including the creation of Disinformation Governance Board and its analytical exchange and sorry, hang on. So here was the thing that I thought was just really strange, that Twitter become involved with the Disinformation Governance Board analytic exchanges on domestic violence, extremism, and irregular migration. And I got to say, I've come across a lot of wacky terms, but what exactly do they mean by irregular migration? Is that us?
I think it very well could be people who have moved for the Free State Project, or perhaps leave the United States to find more freedom, give up their citizenship in order to not have to pay ridiculous U.S. tax. People who might go to Washington, D.C. for a protest on a particular date that they've recently had a hearing about. Whatever it is, we're going to need to check your papers soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of, I don't know how they're using it, but I wouldn't think that just going there for a protest would be a migration.
What was the term before the irregular migration? Because I didn't quite.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple of terms that they're real fond of, MDM, which is misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, which is apparently different. But this term that they use all the time is
malinformation isn't wrong. It's just not
bad.
What we want you to hear.
Wait, what on earth? But yeah, and the other term that they like to use all over the place is what they call domestic violent extremism.
DVE.
So there's regular domestic violence, and then there's extreme domestic violence.
That's right.
Is that like when the WWE gives a demonstration
It's
with
when
wrestlers?
it's sponsored by Red Bull.
Ah, okay. Or Mountain Dew Extra or whatever it is. Yeah.
For what it's worth, they say here on the internets that irregular migration, there's no universally accepted definition of it. However, the International Organization for Migration defines it as, quote, movement that takes place outside the regulatory norms of the sending, transit, and receiving countries. So free migration, basically? People that don't ask for permission, quote-unquote illegal immigration?
I can't remember the last time I asked permission.
Yeah. Well, you do ask permission every time you go
Walk
and
through
get a
like a
airport.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peakless, anything else you want to share?
Nope, just wanted to put it out there that A, these documents all got declassified, and B, they are specifically targeting, like through Twitter in particular, and this got honestly one of the most terrifying things I've ever heard of is a public-private partnership. But they are specifically targeting what they call irregular migration.
Interesting. Thank you, Peakless, for the call tonight. Appreciate it. Let's go to Josie in Virginia. You're on Free Talk Live. Josie.
No, not much time. I'll have to just be brief. For what it's worth, Department, we always had these people that have come to say, oh, we need, please do something about the guns. Mm-hmm. And, of course, they're going to keep on having these guns as long as they're having the same kind of thing, and it's the same old thing. And I've got something that I think we should just turn the clock back to when they didn't have so many people shooting like they do. And what they did was maybe in the 1800s or maybe early 1900s, when there was someone who definitely was a mass murderer, they would bring out the scaffolding in the Times Square or the town square, and then they would invite the public to come and see it, and they would hang the man.
Public
or
executions.
whoever did it.
So bringing it back.
And I think
now, of course, the problem...
That makes a very visual scene.
The problem, of course,
anybody.
Josie, with the death penalty is what if you get the wrong guy?
If you know the person did it, you have a speedy trial. You don't wait 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah, that's one thing I would certainly say is that cruel and unusual punishment should be, sitting on death row for 10 years is cruel and unusual punishment.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they should punish the way they used to punish them because it made a visual impression and people didn't do it anymore. You didn't have these shootings the way you do now.
Should they be televised? Would you have like a pay-per-view on HBO?
Hey, maybe that's a good idea, too. I would not say yes or no.
Thank you,
but
Josie.
I agree with you, everything you said.
Appreciate it. Thanks for calling tonight.
So I don't know. I haven't looked at crime. Well, I guess I could say this. Crime rates are higher now than they were in, say, Dodge. If you compare like Baltimore to Dodge City, it was like the last time I looked at statistics, it was like 27 times more dangerous.
Meaning Dodge City is?
No, Baltimore.
Okay, Baltimore. Got it.
And like, New York City was 10 times as dangerous as Dodge City. And, they're just sort of comparing the Old West with the new modern eras. So it may be true that there was less crime.
Well, Josie's arguing it's because of public hangings. Public executions.
I wouldn't be able to say whether it was or not. I'm just trying to look at the numbers. I'm against capital punishment because I believe that you will necessarily have some mistakes. And if you have some mistakes, then you are the killer that you're trying to kill. If you advocate for a system that kills, and that system will necessarily be flawed,
because it's run by people,
then you are the killer that you wish to kill. I'm against it for that reason. But, I have religious qualms against these sorts of things, and that's my argument.
I want to bring Gigi on the line here in South Carolina. Gigi, you're on Free Talk Live.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, you're on the air. Go ahead.
You always emphasize the importance of current events, which I am most passionate about. I have a question.
Sure.
I feel, in my personal opinion, that it seems to me that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris bad-mouthing Guatemala, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba, and purposely not including them in this important Conference of the Americas being held in Los Angeles is counterproductive. If our federal government is so gung-ho about promoting economic development and curtailing illegal immigration, why the hell not sit down and talk with the leaders?
Good question.
I
Thank you
know
for the
that
call.
Honduras is looking at not participating because other places are not being allowed to come, like, for instance, Cuba and that sort of thing. I don't know. I can tell you that the crutch that socialists use to justify the reason their economies suck is always that America's ruining it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't justify a tyrannical system by even doing business with them.
Yeah, it's weird, too, because the federal government's been cozying up with the Venezuelans recently. They want their oil. See you tomorrow night online in the meantime over at freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast,